Chapter 2003. When the elderly's vision was fixed on Yiqing Luo, a glint of radiance flashed past. "Young lady, I'm indeed here to help the Wolf Saint technique." He spoke calmly as his sharp gaze swept past Yiqing Luo's eyes. "Could it be that young lady is the representative of the West Continent?" "No, I can't represent the West Continent." Yiqing Luo met the elderly's gaze as her glower flame fan swayed gently. "I'm merely protecting my home, protecting this piece of land that I grew up on." When the elderly heard that, he couldn't help but burst out laughing. "Young lady, in that case, you're going against me?" "Against me?" Yiqing Luo laughed lightly. "If you want to take action against other continents, naturally it's none of my business. But if you want to help the dark forces to invade my West Continent, then I have no choice but to interfere." Her curved brows were narrow and alluring, so lively that it seemed like it could speak, crystal clear. The elderly laughed loudly as he examined Yiqing Luo. "Young lady, do you know who I am? So young and frivolous, aren't you afraid of offending someone you can't afford to offend?" He scoffed lightly. "I see that you're pretty, so I won't be calculative with you. Now move aside and I'll spare your life." Yiqing Luo's fingertips moved as the glower flame fan opened up, covering half of her face. She gave a tender smile as her charming eyes flashed with a hint of ridicule. "Old grandpa, are you trying to be an old cow eating young grass? But you've taken a liking to me, but I despise you." Her words fell. Yiqing Luo's figure suddenly shot upwards. Her blazing dress was like a blooming rose. The glower flame fan in her hands suddenly opened up as it turned into a chi dragon. The dragon head was raised high while the tail of the head swayed. The red chi dragon was vivid and lifelike. That chi dragon spiraled around, appearing extremely noble and majestic. The surrounding chi was like a surging tide as it surged. Yiqing Luo's attack made the elderly's eyes flash with a sliver of interest. He gave a cold laugh as his palm moved. His black sleeves brought forth a burst of earth-shaking energy. In a split second, the entire West Continent public square seemed as though it was about to collapse as the wind whistled past their ears. His surrounding profound energy was like a huge wave that surged into the sky. Following his attack, it was like a surging tide, surging towards Yiqing Luo. "Qing Luo! Miss Yi! Lass!" A few worried and panicked voices came from all directions. Long Yunzhan raised his blue long sword and was about to rush up to help Yiqing Luo block this move. Tong Ziqing immediately hugged his arm. "Class rep, calm down. Qing Luo would be fine. You can't go there, you'll die." Anyone could see the old man's strength. It was completely beyond everyone's imagination. Ordinary people like them went up. In a matter of minutes, he would be crushed into pieces by the energy shot out by the old man. "I will die if I go over, then what about Qing Luo?" Long Yunzhan's entire body tensed up as he used all his strength to shake off Tong Ziqing's hand. A pair of azure-blue eyes stared at Yiqing Luo's direction in terror. There was no way Tong Ziqing would let go of him. On the other side of the battlefield, the dark force of heaven and earth was still rolling and surging. The energy dragon created by the gourd flame fan collided with the old man's profound energy. After a while, the chi dragon weakened. Following that, it dissipated into the air. The blue in Long Yunzhan's eyes turned deeper. The hands under his sleeves clenched tightly into fists. "Let go!" Long Yunzhan berated coldly as he used his strength and flung Tong Ziqing aside. Tong Ziqing used all her strength on Long Yunzhan. Chapter 2004. Ugh! A muffled moan was heard from Tong Ziqing's nose. She held onto the ground in pain as she felt a tearing pain on her back. Perhaps it was because she had fallen onto the broken rocks, cutting the skin on her back. Tong Ziqing bit her lower lip tightly as she endured the pain as she hugged Long Yunzhan's leg tightly. "Class monitor, you can't go. That force is too strong. You can't go." Long Yunzhan's eyes were filled with worry as he looked at the battlefield which was shrouded in profound chi. His heart was filled with worry, almost tormenting him to madness. Long Yunjan's ears could no longer hear Tong Ziqing's voice. He lowered his head and was about to push Tong Ziqing away. His gaze fell onto Tong Ziqing's slender back, which was stained with blood. His pupils suddenly constricted. The broken rocks had cut through Tong Ziqing's rough green robe. It revealed half of her back skin. Fresh blood covered that area, an ugly scar which would never disappear. Bright red blood stung his eyes. Long Yunjan's expression congealed as he regained his senses. Are you alright? He bent over and carried the disheveled Tong Ziqing into his arms. Warm blood covered his palm. This was Tong Ziqing's scar on her back because of him. Now this scar, because of his pushing, had spread again. Looking at the lady whose eyes were red but she was enduring the pain, only repeating the words asking him not to go over. Long Yunjan's heart could no longer persevere as he let go of Tong Ziqing and rushed into the battlefield to help Yiqing Luo. In just a short period of time, Yi Zichen's expression changed. On the battlefield, a burst of profound energy colliding and exploding was heard. Long Yunjan immediately looked over. He saw that petite figure standing steadily in the hurricane. She held onto her glower flame fan, as she and the elderly man's palm wind were in a stalemate in midair. The surrounding air was also faintly trembling. Terrifying chi rays set off waves after waves of air, stacking layer upon layer. Just one look and one felt extremely shocked. After the two forces collided once again, the profound energy dissipated, completely disappearing. Yiqing Luo retreated several steps. Her feet left a long mark on the blood-soaked ground. The old man only took a small step back. The elderly narrowed his malicious eyes as he stared deeply at Yiqing Luo. "Young lady, your aptitude is not bad." Initially, this old man thought that there was probably no one else in this Nirvana realm who could block this old man's attack. Unexpectedly, you, little lady, actually managed to block this old man's attack. The corners of his lips curled up and he said with a bewitching smile, "Little girl, are you interested in becoming my disciple? If you become my disciple, I will teach you everything I know." "Grandpa, you really want to eat the cradle?" Yiqing Luo's face was filled with disgust as she looked at the elderly man in astonishment and shook her head hard. "I'm a young lady from a decent family, old grandpa, we don't date. Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit." In the old man's eyes, it was his honor to take a fancy to this group of lowly humans. This insolent little girl actually dared to refuse him? Moreover, her words were so unpleasant to hear. "Little girl, this old man will give you a word of advice. Nirvana realm is about to perish. As long as you become this old man's disciple, this old man can bring you away from Nirvana realm, to live in other planes." The elderly man's malicious eyes stared at Yiqing Luo's eyes without blinking. Perish? Yiqing Luo was slightly stunned. Chapter 2005. Lass. Suddenly, Yiqing Luo felt a warmth on her wrist as old man Tsang's voice entered her mind. His voice was a little solemn as he said in a deep voice, "This person is not someone from the Nirvana realm. From the aura he exudes, he should be from the upper realm, Earth realm." Earth realm people? Why would someone from the Earth realm come to Nirvana realm? Could it be that he was not afraid of heaven's punishment? One must know that this was a place where massacres were everywhere and the strong were respected. The most important thing was the balance of each realm. Nirvana realm was the lowest realm among all the major realms. A profound practitioner of the Earth profound realm here could already be considered a high-level profound practitioner. But if placed in the Earth realm, an Earth profound realm cultivator was just a low-level cultivator. Especially in the Nirvana realm, the Sky profound realm cultivator was revered. In the Earth realm, there were a lot of them. This was the difference between the two realms. And because of this, in order to maintain the balance of each realm, once the profound energy exceeded the limit of this realm, it would be drawn into the upper realm. And people from the upper realm, without the permission of the upper realm's realm emperor, they could not go to the lower realm and disturb the balance. Of course, they could also imitate Xiao Jin and disguise themselves as an upper-level cultivator from the lower realm. No matter what, Heaven Wei would not be able to detect Xiao Jin's aura. But, obviously, this old man in front of them did not disguise himself at all as he released his profound energy unscrupulously. Was he not worried about Heaven Wei's punishment? Not worried about being forcefully sent back to the Earth realm? The dark forces actually colluded with people from the Earth realm and invited people from the Earth realm as external help. How could our West Continent's army defeat the experts from the Earth realm? Yiqing Luo frowned as she looked at the old man vigilantly. If he deliberately suppressed his profound energy and only used the limit of Nirvana realm to deal with you, Heaven Wei will naturally not be able to detect his strength. After old man Tsang explained, he said in a serious tone, "Little girl, if the people from the Earth realm intervene, I'm afraid that the West Continent will be in danger. Even if the upper realm wants to remedy the situation, it will take some time for them to descend from the upper realm." Yiqing Luo caught the main point, the period of time you mentioned. What do you mean, how long? Every world position has its own passageway. Takes at least 4 hours to pass through that passageway. Old man Tsang said, however, without the permission of the realm emperor, the guards at the passageway will not let you pass. It is clear that this old man secretly came down from the Earth realm. He must have spent a lot of time. Yiqing Luo muttered as she calculated in her heart, which means to say, the dark forces had long colluded with that bunch of people from the Earth realm. That was why the old man was able to arrive in time. If the old man from the Earth realm interfered, the royal army would definitely not be able to withstand it. Right now, she was the only one who could stall the old man. When Dmo Xian rushed over, only then could this matter be completely resolved. There was always someone better out there. After seeing the old man's ability, Yiqing Luo's heart was filled with the urge to have a go. But more than that, he was calm. If she wanted to fight with an expert, even the slightest mishap would happen. It wasn't just her life that had been destroyed. Instead, it was the entire Western continent. Yiqing Luo didn't dare to use the West continent to gamble. Since the Wolf Saint technique had invited external help, then she could also invite external help. Chapter 2006. Young lady, why are you still in a daze? From the looks of it, you've decided to become this old man's disciple. The elderly's gloomy voice was as cold as ice. As he said that, he flew towards Yiqing Luo's direction. He stretched out his arm and grabbed Yiqing Luo's shoulder. Then, leave with me now. His fingers were extremely shriveled and looked extremely horrifying. His 5 fingers were slightly bent and turned into eagle claws as he clawed towards Yiqing Luo, totally not showing any amiability as a master. On the contrary, it seemed like he wanted to take her life. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold. Her reaction was extremely swift as she turned sideways and avoided the elderly's eagle claws. Following that, her toes tapped lightly on the ground and her figure swiftly retreated backwards. A red robe fluttered in the wind like a burning flame. Following that, her slender fingers gently brushed past the glower flame fan. A surge of red light burst out violently. Numerous silver threads encircled the elderly. Those silver threads were like sharp blades, layers upon layers, as though it was trying to wrap the elderly into a silken silkworm cocoon. Following the manipulation of Yiqing Luo's fingers, the silver threads turned into circles and circles of ripples and huge waves, like a surging tide, constantly encircling the profound energy. Qing Luo 1. Qing Luo 1. Tong Zi Qing nestled in Long Yunzhan's arms, looking at the battle situation. Her face revealed a joyous expression. When the others heard that, their anxious and worried expressions also surfaced a joyous expression. Earlier that elderly was wrapped into a cicada cocoon by Yiqing Luo's silver threads. This should be considered as Yi Qing Luo had won that elderly. Wolf Saint Law had been looking at the elderly anxiously. Towards that sir, he had never believed him. That person had said that he would personally come to Nirvana Realm to help him occupy the West Continent. But in the end, he sent an old man over. Although the old man's ability was very strong, but he could not be compared to Yi Qing Luo. What was the use of being strong? What he wanted was a strong practitioner who could deal with Yi Qing Luo. After seeing Wolf Saint Law being completely covered by the silver threads, Wolf Saint Law's expression was as black as charcoal. If that person still didn't come, what chance did they have to win? Could it be that he really had to flee again? Wolf Saint Fa's face was ashen as he cursed that person in his heart. Just as everyone was cheering, Yi Qing Luo's fingers, which were clenching the glower flame fan, suddenly paused. Her expression is serious, and her sharp eyes sweep over the people who are about to come over. He won't die so easily. Stand in the enchantment of the Mu family, and no one is allowed to come out. Yi Qing Luo's words had just landed. There was a loud bang sound. Immediately after, an explosion occurred in the direction of the cicada pupa. Puffs of white smoke and dust floated up. The huge cicada pupa exploded, and a strong airflow lingered in the air, one circle after another. Gradually it turned into a whirlpool. Amidst the smoke and blood, after the cicada pupa exploded, the elderly man clenched his fists tightly as he stared furiously at Yi Qing Luo. His long black robe had been cut in several places by the cicada pupae. He looked extremely disheveled. Because of this, the elderly man was extremely furious. The expression on his face was sinister and terrifying. "All right, young lady, I will seriously play with you. I want to see where your limit is." The elderly man clenched his teeth as he gave a chilly smile. The surging profound energy followed the aura of the cicada pupa as it shot out a powerful force. Yi Qing Luo's face turned pale. She immediately flipped the glower flame fan and blocked that profound energy which was charging towards her. Even though she had reacted in advance, but she still couldn't avoid the elderly man's attack. This attack directly broke through Yi Qing Luo's resistance and struck fiercely towards Yi Qing Luo's chest. Chapter 2007. Bam! Yi Qing Luo's petite body was sent flying. Everyone stared at that slender figure as she was sent flying like a cannonball. Their hearts started to wrench. They wanted to rush forward and help Yi Qing Luo to block this attack. However, the enchantment formed by the elders of the Mu family forcibly separated them. Yi Qing Luo felt a fishy sweetness gushing up her throat. She took a deep breath and released her profound qi, trying her best to stabilize her body, to prevent herself from crashing into the pool of blood. Her 2 feet in the ground drew a long ditch. Finally, when her body stabilized, she propped herself up. Her breathing was a little messy. Her body swayed slightly. After some time, her breathing gradually calmed down. She raised her eyes, the corners of her eyes curved as she smiled lightly. "You're indeed a senior from the upper realm. Your ability is indeed very strong." The elderly's eyes suddenly sunk. The gaze which looked at Yi Qing Luo revealed some suspicions. This lady actually knew that he was from the upper realm? Who was she? How could she recognize that he was from the upper realm? And although he didn't use his full strength in the attack earlier, but he used 50% of his strength, this little girl from the lower dimensions was actually able to remain unscathed after receiving a strike from him? No wonder. The dark forces had always been arrogant. Wolf Saint Technique actually took the initiative to seek cooperation from Sir. The elderly squinted his malicious eyes as he sneered. "Good fellow, young lady, this old man is getting more and more interested in you and wants to take you in as my disciple even more." He dragged the last syllable extremely long. Suddenly, his voice abruptly raised. "Now, this old man will test your innate talent properly." His voice had just ended when a strong ray of profound light shot out from the elderly's body. The invisible pressure covered the entire square. The barrier set up by the Mu families old and young, at this moment, was unable to withstand the pressure and loosened. If one looked closely, one could see Mu Xiao and Master Mu Chu, the corners of their mouths were bleeding. Apparently, the elderly was serious. Yiqing Luo squinted her long and narrow eyes, as her slender brows knitted tightly. The 5 fingers which were holding the glower flame fan clenched into a fist. The innate talent and profound rank of the people from the Earth realm were already above hers. If the old man was serious about fighting with her, she would never be able to gain any advantage. He stared at the old man's profound strength, which was still increasing explosively. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed as her toes suddenly tapped lightly on the ground and her figure suddenly turned into a breeze, like a remnant shadow, heading towards the direction of the elderly man. She flipped the devouring flame fan a few times on her fingertip. A sharp dagger slid out from the handle of the fan. The red electric currents flowing around the glowing flame fan spread out layer by layer. That flirtatious red glow made Yiqing Luo's devastatingly beautiful looks look even more flirtatious and alluring. She got close to the old man and attacked him in a close-quarters combat style. Competing with the old man with profound strength was a retarded way of doing things. Now, he could only use modern close combat and ancient martial arts to seal the old man's attack and break his move. Only then would they be able to achieve victory. The elderly had not expected that a delicate young lady like Yiqing Luo would choose such a method to tangle with him. Close combat was indeed not his forte. But to deal with a young lady, it wasn't a problem. For a moment, the two of them were locked in a fierce battle. The spectators who were in a truce around the West Square revealed a shocked expression when they saw this battle. Chapter 2008. They seemed to have heard Yiqing Luo mention that the old man was a senior from the upper realm? The dark forces had invited external help from the upper realm? The upper realm. To them, that was a godlike existence. No wonder this old man looked so mighty and domineering. His ability was so strong that none of them could maintain their balance under the old man's chi wave. Of course. Except for Yiqing Luo, that pervert. Especially after knowing the old man's identity. Everyone felt that Yiqing Luo was a pervert. Just how powerful was Yiqing Luo? She was able to exchange hundreds of blows with an old man from the upper realm and even came to a draw. She was totally unaffected by the profound waves from the old man from the upper realm. Could it be that Yiqing Luo was already a sky mystic overlord? And the grade wasn't low? F***K. What kind of F***king breed was this? Who was Yiqing Luo? The famous good-for-nothing 7th young mistress. A waste of 15 years of time. In just a few months, not only had she caused a sensation in the entire West continent, she had even spread to other continents, and her name had spread throughout the entire Nirvana realm. And then, in front of all of them, came to a draw with the old man from the upper realm. Were they dreaming? This talent, even the Overlord couldn't achieve it, right? Everyone had thought that Yiqing Luo and the old man had come to a draw and it looked extremely easy. Only Yiqing Luo herself knew. She had exhausted all her energy to engage in close combat with the old man. Although fighting with the old man in close combat was the best choice, it was not a wise choice. But the disparity of profound energy was too huge. The old man's counterattack, whether it was a punch or a palm, was several times stronger than Yiqing Luo's strength. If it wasn't for Yiqing Luo's sharp senses, she could display her footwork at the fastest speed and accurately avoid the old man's attack. But Yiqing Luo would still be injured by the old man's attack. The profound light flickered and appeared faintly in mid-air. While they were exchanging blows, sounds of collision could be heard from time to time. Both of them exchanged over 10 blows again. Yiqing Luo was gradually at a disadvantage. After the two of them exchanged a palm strike, both sides were sent flying back. The old man took a few steps back and steadied himself. "Little girl, your talent and limits have won my heart. I have decided that I will bring you to the Earth domain and train you well." Yiqing Luo wasn't that lucky. After the two palms collided, she flew back dozens of steps. Finally, his heel pressed against a large tree that had been blown up by the mystical qi. Only then did he slow down his body. She took a deep breath. The intense pain eroded her limbs and bones. She felt as if her body was being decomposed. With every breath he took, he felt a stabbing pain all over his body. She calmed herself down and blinked her charming eyes. Only after a long time did she focus on the old man. She could smell the sweet scent of blood on her nose, ears, mouth. Traces of blood flowed out. As expected, the disparity in Xian rank was too great. Was he still unable to win? Her face turned pale, her body swayed, and her breathing became erratic. Her previous battle with Jing Yanyan had caused her to use the power of a divine artifact. She had first depleted most of her energy. After the divine artifact's energy was depleted, her own strength had also been affected. Now against the old man from the Earth domain. Chapter 2009. Yiqing Luo's expression was seen by the elderly man. He sneered sinisterly as his malicious eyes stared deeply at that pale complexion. "Young lady, take a nap first. When you wake up, you'll be my proudest disciple." As he said that, his figure started to move swiftly. His palms flipped and his palm chi was extremely sharp as a tyrannical and powerful profound ray surged out. Yiqing Luo's face turned paler by several shades. She held on to her willpower and bit the tip of her tongue hard, until the smell of blood filled her entire mouth. She took a deep breath as her feet moved, displaying her footwork in an attempt to avoid the elderly man's attack. But just as her feet moved, at the next instant, the elderly man's palm wind followed closely behind. Damn it! Her footwork had indeed been seen through. The current her speed was totally incomparable to before. The elderly man could clearly see her trajectory. She couldn't avoid it? Bam bam bam! The palm wind struck, stirring up several air currents. Yiqing Luo didn't feel the pain of the profound qi cutting through her body. She frowned as she fixed her eyes in front. She saw two figures, standing in front of her, helping her to block the elderly man's palm wind. The man's blue robe fluttered, like the lake water, rippling under the strong wind. The woman's green robe fluttered as she held a long spear in her hand as her profound energy surged. Long Yunzhan and Tong Ziqing. They actually broke through the barrier, helping her to block the elderly man's rising momentum. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes sunk as huge waves surged in her enchanting blood-red pupils. "What are you guys doing here? Quickly go back." Although Long Yunzhan was an earth dragon, but his memory had yet to recover. His energy had yet to recover. He who had yet to transform into a dragon, how could he be the Earth Realm elderly man's opponent? Tong Ziqing. Her ability was indeed not bad. But in the Earth Realm elderly man's hands, she probably wouldn't last more than 3 moves. They were not the Earth Realm elderly man's opponent. "Qing Luo, take a rest. Leave the rest to us." "Qing Luo, you need to rest," Long Yunzhan and Tong Ziqing said in unison. They went up against the Earth Realm elderly man and directly started a battle with him. "You're rushing to die. You young people really value friendship and loyalty." The old man smiled coldly, and his eyes flickered with a mocking excitement. He licked his dry lips and smiled eerily. "Since that's the case, this old man will satisfy you. Your opponent is me." Yiqing Luo howled hoarsely. Long Yunzhan, Tong Ziqing, the both of you scram back to the array barrier. Get lost. However, the two of them looked at the old man with excitement in their eyes, as if they had seen their prey. There was no fear in their eyes. The two of them looked at each other and their auras surged. A sword and a spear surrounded the old man. Yiqing Luo's face turned pale as she clenched her fists. Suddenly, he raised his leg and was about to charge into the battle. However, his wrist was grabbed by someone. Mu Zhao's solemn voice resounded. Little Yi, don't let them down. You're not in a good state right now, so you must adjust the internal force in your body. On the other side, Mu Lai and Shui Fei Shui blocked in front of Yi Qing Luo. Only you are able to cross hands with the people from the upper realm. If anything happens to you, wouldn't the West Continent be destroyed? Little Yi, you must recuperate quietly for a while to adjust the profound energy in your body so that you can save more people. Yi Qing Luo's entire body tensed up as her eyes stared unblinkingly at the two who were battling with the old man. She didn't want to save anyone. She only wanted her brothers to be safe. Chapter 2010. How could Long Yunzhan and Tong Ziqing be a match for the Earth Realm elderly man? Wasn't this pushing them towards the direction of death? She wasn't a saint and she didn't have any great ambition to save the common people, to save more people. For the West Continent. If she sacrificed Long Yunzhan and Tong Ziqing, she would rather destroy everything. Not a single one of her brothers could be left behind. Qing Luo, if you can't bear for us to be injured too badly, then quickly adjust your own profound energy. We're still waiting for you to save us. Tong Ziqing's cold and elegant face surfaced a faint smile. Qing Luo, I believe you. Long Yunzhan said calmly. Their words were like a warm current, slowly flowing into Yi Qing Luo's heart. Her charming eyes met with the two men's resolute eyes. Her heart, at this moment, suddenly brightened up. The two of them were trying to buy time for her treatment. They believed in her. Then she should choose to believe in them. Believe that they would be able to buy time for her to strike again. Yi Qing Luo's slender fingers curled up one by one. Her eyes flickered slightly, faintly concealing all the brilliance. Lass Yi, you'd better take this pill. Mu Xiao took out his life-saving pill which was used to treat internal injuries. Jin and I will treat you together, catalyzing the medicinal effect. It will definitely allow you to recover more than half of your energy in a short period of time. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips, looking at the two concerned faces in front of her. She took another look at the Earth Realm elderly man who was tangling with her. No, to be more accurate, the two of them who were being toyed with by the Earth Realm elderly man. She eventually closed her eyes. Then I'll have to trouble you. The treatment began. Yi Qing Luo was protected by the royal army in the innermost layer. Old Master Mu and Mu Lai helped Yi Qing Luo to adjust her breathing. While Yi Qing Luo was adjusting her breathing, she didn't forget to get in touch with Old Man Tsang. Old Man Tsang, this Earth Realm elderly man, even if he didn't expend any profound energy which exceeded Nirvana Realm's limit, does Heavenly Wei not care about him? Heavenly Wei was the god who controlled all the living things in the world. If the people of the Earth domain suppressed their dark force and abused their power in the Nirvana Realm, wouldn't they be punished by the Heavenly Tao? This Earth Realm old man dared to be so arrogant. It was very likely that he wasn't afraid of the Heavenly Tao's punishment at all, or rather, did this old man from the Earth Realm have a special identity? Old Man Tsang was silent for a moment. This point, I have no way of knowing either. He paused for a moment and said, By the way, when will Di Zun arrive? If he was here, he would have. Bang! A violent collision sound interrupted Old Man Tsang's words. Yi Qing Luo abruptly opened her eyes. In front of him, two figures flashed past. Long Yunzhan and Tong Ziqing were sent flying by a burst of energy. Yi Qing Luo's heart trembled. However, she heard Mu Zhao's stern shout, Little Yi, you can't be distracted at this crucial moment. Calm your mind. She felt a strong pressure on her shoulders that pinned her to the ground, not allowing her to move at all. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were filled with a biting cold glint as she stared at Long Yunzhan and Tong Ziqing's direction. They are not that elderly man's match. That elderly man is from the Earth Realm. He's from the Earth Realm. Her voice was extremely hoarse from worry. Chapter 2011. As though he had sensed the dispute on their side. The two of them who were sent flying speedily got up again. Their feet exerted strength as they held the weapons in their hands and charged towards the Earth Realm elderly man. Their bodies were filled with blood scars. Furthermore, Tong Ziqing's ears started to ooze out more and more blood. Their entire bodies were in a tearing pain. The two of them recalled Yiqing Luo and the Earth Realm elderly man's long battle. Yiqing Luo's injuries were much more serious than their external injuries, but Yiqing Luo acted as though nothing had happened, as she fought with the Earth Realm elderly man over and over again. How could they possibly retreat just because of this little bit of injury? They wanted to let Yiqing Luo recuperate her depleted profound energy as soon as possible. They tried their best to drag more time for Yiqing Luo. The blue light in Long Yunzhan's eyes gradually became thicker as circles and circles of ripples kept on spreading. The blue long sword in his hand suddenly shot out an intense profound ray, following the strong flickering of the blue light in his eyes. His profound energy became thicker and thicker, as though there was some kind of energy accumulating in his body waiting to be unleashed. This surge of terrifying profound energy made the elderly squint his eyes as he took a deep look at Long Yunzhan. In his eyes, a sliver of judging intent flashed past. "Lad, what are you? The aura from your body doesn't seem like an ordinary human's aura." The elderly man was apparently interested in Long Yunzhan. Long Yunzhan's long sword moved. It instantly turned into a ray of blue light. The dark force that was shot out actually cut the old man's robe. The elderly man's eyes suddenly shone as he gave a cold laugh. "Ha ha ha. I'd not expected that I would meet such a living being on this trip down to the lower realm. The lower realm actually has such a living being like you." His eyes shone with obvious greed. "I want to subdue you." Yiqing Luo's heart thumped. Could it be that Long Yunzhan's human dragon identity had already been discovered by the elderly man? Following the elderly man's words, the elderly man's surroundings had already formed a huge profound qi, as though the surrounding air was enveloped under her profound qi. The two forces collided in midair. Long Yunzhan's body flew out once more. "Class President!" Tong Ziqing panicked and rushed toward Long Yunzhan, wanting to catch him. But she did not move. The old man suddenly rushed in front of Tong Ziqing. A palm wind fell heavily on Tong Ziqing's body. "Ziqing!" Long Yunzhan had finally stabilized his divine movement with great difficulty, but he hadn't expected the old man to suddenly charge in Tong Ziqing's direction at that moment. How could Tong Ziqing be the old man's opponent? The palm landed on his body. Her face turned deathly pale. She let out a muffled groan and collapsed to the ground. A heart-wrenching pain filled every corner of her body. The spear in Tong Ziqing's hand also fell into a pool of blood. She moved her hand, but she no longer had the strength to hold on to her spear, nor did she have the strength to stand up. This scene fell into Long Yunzhan's eyes. He felt a sudden pain in his heart. He watched as Tong Ziqing's body fell to the ground. Looking at Tong Ziqing, who had no strength to climb up. That cold and elegant face was almost pale, as though she would stop breathing in the next moment. Long Yunzhan's heart, at this moment, twisted together fiercely. "Ziqing!" He roared as the long sword in his hand pointed towards the elderly man, his expression extremely gloomy. "I'm going to kill you." A strong airflow crashed between the both of them. Chapter 2012. However, the disparity in profound grade was something that could not be bridged. Even if Long Yunzhan had already used his human dragon's strength in front of the Earth Realm old man, he was still a clown. But moments later, Long Yunzhan was also sent flying onto the ground. Yiqing Luo's vision had always been on Long Yunzhan and Tong Ziqing's situation. Her heart was getting tighter and tighter. She couldn't wait to rush up and bear their pain on behalf of them. The Earth Realm old man squinted his sinister cold eyes as he sneered sinisterly, "Little thing, after forming a contract with me, I will not treat you badly." His smile became even more unbridled. He lifted his leg and walked towards the direction of Long Yunjian, who had no energy to stand up. Yiqing Luo's fingers tightened. This old man, indeed, discovered Long Yunjian's secret identity. He recognized that Long Yunjian was a human dragon, and he wanted to form a contract with Long Yunjian. Little thing, obediently become this old man's battle pet. The Earth Realm old man stood beside Long Yunjian as he bit his fingertip and dripped the blood onto Long Yunjian's body. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted. Her brother, even she couldn't bear to hurt him. How could she allow an Earth Realm old man to form a contract as a war pet? All along, Zhan had always been a free human. Yiqing Luo had never treated him as a human dragon. If the Earth Realm old man wanted to form a contract with Long Yunjian, he had to ask her if she agreed. Just at this moment, Yiqing Luo felt an extremely subtle change in her heart. She faintly felt a scorching feeling coming from her profound jade heart. Her thoughts moved as she squinted her eyes as she tried to communicate with the God Relic. I want to expend the God Relic's energy once more, is that possible? Lass, are you crazy? Old Man Tsang cried out in shock. Based on your current body, using the God Relic's energy once is already considered to be over your limit. Using the God Relic's energy once more, you might not be able to defeat that person from the Earth Realm, and there is a possibility of your body suffering from the backlash. More importantly, your profound jade heart is not stable and cannot withstand your devastation. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips tightly as her eyes were like frost, extremely resolute. But I have no second choice. I absolutely cannot watch Zhan being contracted by him. Old Man Tsang didn't know how to refute for a moment. Indeed, if he used the power of his divine artifact, he might be able to fight to a draw with that Earth Realm old man. Otherwise, even if Yiqing Luo had adjusted her depleted profound energy, he probably wouldn't be able to force the Earth Realm Elder to retreat. Old Man Tsang didn't stop him again. Yiqing Luo's thoughts moved and the divine artifact instantly connected with her senses. The divine artifact obeyed her every command. Yiqing Luo wanted to exhaust the power of the divine weapon for the second time. A divine artifact would obey all orders unconditionally. The conversation between these thoughts seemed to take a long time. In reality, it only lasted for a breath of time. On the other side, the Earth Realm Elder had already wiped the blood from his fingertip on Long Yunjian's forehead. His face was filled with joy and excitement. He was about to form a contract with a human dragon as his battlefield. He could control a human dragon to fight for him. His status in the Earth domain would definitely rise because of this. As long as there was a human dragon, he would be even more powerful than that lord. With that thought, the old man became even more excited. Just as the blood stained Long Yunjian's forehead, the old man was about to release his profound energy and start to recite the oath. Suddenly, a hurricane blew past. That hurricane seemed to have a life of its own as it brushed past Long Yunjian. Chapter 2013. Are you even worthy to touch my brother? Her voice was quiet and elegant, but it was extremely cold. The hurricane dispersed and a young lady dressed in a fiery red robe appeared in front of the old man. The young lady's face was frosty and her whole body was releasing flames, which was extremely intimidating. Even the old man couldn't help but be frightened by the young lady's look. The old man's expression changed and his malicious eyes stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. Stinky lass! Get out of my way! He was about to contract a human dragon. He was about to own a dragon as a war pet. Yiqing Luo could actually heal her injuries in such a short period of time? And even stopped him from contracting a human dragon? He remembered that when he hurt Yiqing Luo previously, he didn't show any mercy. Could it be that Yiqing Luo was doing this for that human dragon? The treatment was not over and she forcefully rushed over? Stinky lass! You know very well what this thing is. The old man's gaze was sharp as he sneered. You only have two choices now. First, bring this living creature out and let me contract it. After the contract, I promise you that I will never find any trouble with you forever. Second, I will spread this kid's secret. I believe there will be many people who are very interested in this living creature. Apparently, the old man intended to threaten Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's eyes were cold as she snorted softly. Her eyes were wrapped with an extremely biting cold glint. Immediately, her lips curled up slightly as she said softly, I choose the third option. The old man didn't expect Yiqing Luo to still be able to show off at this time. His face instantly turned gloomy. Before he could react, he heard Yiqing Luo laughing out loud. The third option, I will kill you to eliminate any future troubles. The old man couldn't help but burst out laughing when he heard that. Kill me? Just based on you? The old man gave her a contemptuous glance. Following that, his words turned into a tempting whisper, Stinky lass, you'd better be my disciple and hand over this living creature. I know you have a close relationship with this living creature. If you follow me back, you can see this living creature anytime you want, isn't it? Yiqing Luo didn't speak again, but directly used actions to explain. Without another word, she attacked the old man. The elderly man obviously sensed that Yiqing Luo's profound energy was much thicker than when they exchanged blows not too long ago. Her attacks were all filled with a strong killing intent. The old man was shocked. How was it possible for this young lady to raise her profound energy to such a powerful level in such a short period of time? How was this possible? Just now, she clearly looked like she was no match for him. What was going on? In the old man's heart, he kept on guessing the reason for the sudden change in Yiqing Luo's imposing manner. Under Yiqing Luo's murderous attack, it was getting more and more strenuous. Yiqing Luo's profound energy kept on increasing explosively. The berserk power was getting stronger and stronger. Bang! There was a loud noise. This time round, it was the elderly who was thrown onto the ground by Yiqing Luo. The old man was stunned. This was the first time he had been thrown away by a 15-year-old girl. He sat on the ground blankly for a moment. Shortly after, he leapt up from the ground, the expression on his face instantly becoming savage and terrifying. Senior, she has a god relic on her, that's the power of a god relic. Wolf Saint technique reminded. God relic? The old man frowned. Young lady, you have a god relic on you? The greed in his eyes could no longer be concealed. This young lady, what background did she have? She had a human dragon as her brother. She had a god relic on her own? She could even use the power of the god relic. Asterisk. Chapter 2014. Yiqing Luo sneered. Why? Are you afraid? Her 5 fingers clenched tightly as the glower flame fan in her hands turned into a tornado, like a huge whirlpool. At some point in time, the entire square changed color. The whirlpool headed towards the elderly man's direction. That strong suction force made the elderly man's footsteps unstable. Everything around him was sucked into that huge whirlpool. The ground shook as numerous fine cracks appeared. The old man stood shakily, his robes fluttering in the wind. His entire head of silver hair was fluttering in the wind, showing its fangs and brandishing its claws. Stinky lass. God relic and this little thing, I want them both. The elderly man was attracted by the strong profound energy released by Yiqing Luo as the greed in his eyes grew thicker. Following that, his eyes turned hazy. Facing that whirlpool, he raised his palm. The originally turbulent square became even more majestic with the addition of the elderly man's profound energy. The strong airflow kept rising and rolling. Rumble! 2 bursts of profound energy collided. The strong profound wave seemed as though it could destroy the heaven and earth. Yiqing Luo took a step back. A sly smile appeared on her devastatingly beautiful face. The elderly man's heart trembled. He thought to himself, not good. He was about to retreat. Yiqing Luo suddenly tightened her grip on the glower flame fan. Because of the power of the god relic, The thick, profound energy covered the sky and earth as it pressed down. The elderly man had nowhere to escape to. He could only brace himself as he strengthened his profound energy to go against Yi Qing Luo's strength. But how would the elderly man be a match for the god relic? He strengthened his profound energy even more. The profound energy released by Yi Qing Luo was also gradually increasing. In an instant, the elderly man felt a stuffiness in his chest as a mouthful of blood spurted out. His body suddenly retreated a few steps. Losing the support of his profound energy, Yi Qing Luo's god relic's power completely swallowed the elderly man. Smoke rose and blood splattered. After Yi Qing Luo forcefully expended the god relic's power, she obviously felt something in her body was flowing away. The profound heart jade was also faintly burning hot. This was a reminder that she had used up too much of her strength. Yi Qing Luo took a deep breath, trying her best to slow down the restlessness in her body. She narrowed her eyes and stared unblinkingly in the direction of the old man. Hopefully, someone who could deal with the people of this realm. The rest could be left to the royal army and the other factions. As long as there was no help from the people of the Earth domain, the current dark forces could not cause any trouble at all. Just as Yi Qing Luo heaved a sigh of relief, suddenly, a ray of silver light flashed past. Soon after, a 2-meter-long blade appeared in front of the old man who had been devoured by the power of the god artifact. The huge saber glowed with silver light and contained boundless power. Even Yi Qing Luo was shocked by that ray of silver light as she took a few steps back. The aura of the divine tool's power dissipated in an instant. The old man fell in front of the saber, his face full of shock and fear. He seemed to be experiencing extreme pain and despair. On his body, the robes had already turned into strips of ragged cloth under the impact of the profound energy. He was covered in blood. It was impossible to tell if it was his blood, or was it the ground which was stained with his blood. The old man took some time before he reacted. Following that, his eyes stared deadly at that huge saber. A loud dong sound was heard. The old man trembled all over as he knelt down towards that huge saber. Chapter 2015. Everyone. Yi Qing Luo. What kind of situation was this? That insolent old man who came down from the upper realm actually knelt down and kowtowed to a huge blade? What was the background of this huge blade? Say, sir. The old man's voice trembled as his face turned ashen. He kowtowed so hard that his forehead turned red. Sir? Yi Qing Luo's expression congealed. Could it be the sir that Wolf Saint Law was waiting for? The sir who could make the old man from the earth realm so fearful? Could it be that he was a reputable person in the earth realm? Wolf Saint Law had found such a strong external aid. So after seeing 2/3 of the people from the dark forces dead, he was still able to remain calm? Everyone was still looking at the old man in a daze. When Wolf Saint Law heard the old man's call, his face instantly revealed an ecstatic expression. He took 2 quick steps forward as he stared at that huge blade agitatedly. You see, are you that useless? A chilly voice came from afar. Immediately following that, Yi Qing Luo felt an extremely icy cold aura coming towards her. On the side of that huge blade stood a tall and straight man dressed in a black robe. The old man raised his head in shock as he looked at the man and spoke in fear. I know I'm wrong. The man's entire body was emitting an unapproachable aura. He merely glanced at the old man indifferently, causing the old man's begging words to be stuck in his throat. Sir, you're finally here. When Wolf Saint Law saw the figure clearly, his brows were raised in joy as he took quick steps forward to welcome him. But the man's sleeves moved. A shapeless airflow blocked Wolf Saint Law's footstep. He glanced coldly at Wolf Saint Law as he spoke coldly. This is just a deal between us. There's no need to play any relations with me. Wolf Saint Law stood awkwardly on the spot. His expression sunk slightly, but he still tried his best to put on a smiling face. Yes, then I'll have to trouble you. The man turned his head around coldly as his gaze swept coldly towards the old man. The old man shuddered as his head banged heavily onto the ground, not daring to make a sound. "This, sir?" Yiching Luo stared at the man's face and was slightly stunned. That face, wasn't he the person who appeared in the martial god formation when Netherworld used the Nether Mirror? Cold. This Yuhan was the Lord, who cooperated with Wolf's sacred technique? If her memory served her right. Behind Yuhan, there was a person known as Venerable One. He cooperated with the Wolf Saint Law. Was it Yuhan's intention or the Venerable One's? They were all from the Earth domain? Then, was the Netherworld also someone from the Earth domain? Yuhan also sensed Yiching Luo's attentive gaze. His vision fell onto Yiching Luo. That gaze made Yiching Luo shiver inexplicably. Yiching Luo. He accurately called out Yiching Luo's name as he stared at her face for some time. "West Continent, I'll get it on behalf of Wolf Saint Technique." His tone was calm and cold. He wasn't spouting nonsense. It was just stating a fact. The unanimous opinion was like an icehouse, attacking her whole body. Her body seemed to be frozen. Yiching Luo frowned. Before they even crossed hands, Yiching Luo had already clearly felt Yuhan's powerful ability. Thinking of Netherworld. They were from the same place, and it was obvious that their abilities were on par with Yuhan. If Yuhan were to cross hands with her. Chapter 2016. Yiching Luo was filled with apprehension and uneasiness. The crowd couldn't tell. When Yuhan called out Yiching Luo's name. Other than shock, there was only shock in everyone's heart. Other than astonishment, there was only astonishment. The people from the upper realm all knew Yiching Luo? That was the external help that Wolf Saint Technique had invited. Knew Yiching Luo? Yiching Luo's genius reputation had spread all the way to the upper realm? One must know that the old man had already given them a huge shock. That old man was extremely respectful towards Yuhan, and even had that fearful look. It was enough to tell that Yuhan's status and ability were above the old man. Yuhan knew Yiching Luo. The strong cultivators from the upper realm knew Yiching Luo. What kind of concept was this? As for the matter of Yuhan knowing her name, Yiching Luo wasn't surprised at all. Ever since the godless array came out, the Netherworld disappeared alone. He would definitely look for Yuhan, and Yu knew. And through Yu Ming, it wasn't strange that Yuhan knew her name. Yiching Luo's eyes were calm as her lips curled slightly. "Mr. Yuhan is rather confident in yourself." Yuhan raised her brows. "You know me?" "Through Yu Ming, naturally." Yiching Luo replied. "So it's that waste, no wonder a waste like you would know him." Yuhan's lips twitched coldly when he heard that. "Looks like in Mr. Yuhan's eyes, other than yourself, everyone else is a waste." Yiching Luo couldn't help but ridicule when she heard Yuhan's words. This wasn't the first time she heard Yuhan say the word waste. It was extremely ear-piercing. "In my eyes, all of you are indeed waste." Yuhan didn't bother about Yiching Luo's ridicule as he arrogantly raised his head and sneered as he gave her a scornful glance. "Even if you want to bring this bunch of waste and leave the West Continent, I have no intention to let any of you off. Everyone must die here, using your fresh blood to celebrate the new birth of the West Continent." Yuhan's voice paused after every word. The pressure from the machine made it difficult for the people around him to breathe, just by hearing his voice. From this, one could see how majestic his aura was. "What a pity, Yuhan. I'm afraid that your plan to let the West Continent be reborn will never be able to be realized." Yiching Luo clenched her 5 fingers tightly as her lips curled into a sinister smile. She did not waste any more time talking to Yuhan. Now, the power of the divine artifact still lingered in her body. If Yuhan insisted on fighting with her, then he had to hurry up. Yiching Luo's attack, following her words, had already struck towards Yuhan. Yuhan stretched out her arm. The silver broadsword that was stabbed into the ground suddenly rushed into his palm. He brandished his sword a few times in a fancy way. Without any hesitation, he welcomed Yi Qing Luo's attack. The silver broadsword flickered with silver light, looking extremely majestic and terrifying. The two of them quickly intertwined. After exchanging about 20 moves, the disparity between the two of them became clearer. Even if he possessed the power of a divine artifact, he was gradually at a disadvantage under Yuhan's relentless attacks and the consumption of his profound energy. The scorching feeling of the profound jade heart within her body had already caused her chest to faintly feel somewhat uncomfortable. Forcefully expending the power of the divine artifact for the second time, as well as exceeding her load. And after the battle with Yuhan, Yi Qing Luo felt more and more powerless. Only, she could vaguely feel an invisible energy in her body, merging into her blood, faintly boiling. Chapter 2017. What was this power? Yi Qing Luo frowned as she raised her hand to press on her chest. The temperature from her palm was different from her body temperature. Profound jade heart couldn't hold on any longer. Yi Qing Luo looked not too far away with an icy cold face. After these tens of moves, Yuhan didn't seem to be affected in the slightest. How powerful was Yuhan's power? She exhausted the power of the divine relic and was unable to hurt Yuhan at all? Yi Qing Luo's breathing became hurried. She could feel the temperature in her palm gradually rising. This was the warning from the profound jade heart. Without the tranquility bead, her profound jade heart couldn't be maintained. The second release of the divine relic's power had completely overloaded Yi Qing Luo's body. Yi Qing Luo's eyes gradually revealed a trace of blood-red color. Extremely flirtatious, Yuhan's gaze suddenly turned cold. His vision was fixed on Yi Qing Luo's blood-red eyes. The blood-red eyes made her look even more devastatingly beautiful. This blood-red color. Why did it feel a little strange? Yuhan's heart inexplicably raised an uneasy premonition. His eyes turned cold. He had to end this quickly. This young lady called Yi Qing Luo had created too many miracles. He absolutely couldn't allow anyone or anything to escape his control. As long as he could nip all the sprouts in the cradle before the miracle happened, that would do. The broadsword in Yuhan's hand spun one round in midair. Only to hear a loud rumble, the profound light appeared and exploded in all directions. The profound chi was like a spider web, densely enveloping Yi Qing Luo in it. However, the young lady in the profound light. He suddenly raised his head. A pair of blood-red pupils were extremely conspicuous in the profound light. What made Yuhan even more shocked was, Yi Qing Luo's eyes were filled with a sinister coldness, as if even the air had condensed into frost. A gush of red, strong airflow revolved around Yi Qing Luo's body, gradually forming a huge whirlpool. The flirtatious red light looked extremely strange. Her body gradually floated above the whirlpool. She was dressed in a blood-red robe, like a blooming rose. She spread her fingers. The glowing flame fan was like a blazing flame, dancing in her palm. Yuhan's throat tightened, somehow feeling that the current Yi Qing Luo had changed her temperament in an instant. This change made his heart palpitate. Yi Qing Luo's lips slowly curled upwards as the corners of her lips curled upwards, revealing a sliver of chilliness. She took a slow step forward. Step by step, he walked extremely slowly. But with every step she took, it was as if she was stepping on a whirlpool. She was like a goddess on the battlefield. It made one's heart tremble as they looked up at her. "You want to take my life?" Her sweet voice was laced with a hint of coldness. It was like a chilling frost. Yuhan's face darkened, and she was about to retreat. The next moment, Yi Qing Luo raised her arm and triggered the whirlpool, blocking in front of Yuhan. "Now I want to take your life." The red-clothed girl with blood-red eyes looked like a bloodthirsty war god. With a flick of her fingers, silver threads shot out. If one looked closely, one could clearly see that every silver thread was lingering with a faint red glow. Ah! A miserable scream was heard. Yuhan's body was bound by the silver threads. Fresh blood spurted out. Suddenly, Yuhan's body was hung up in midair by the silver threads. Hee! Yiqing Luo laughed softly. Her enchanting face was extremely bewitching. This imposing manner. Not Yiqing Luo. This was absolutely not the Yiqing Luo who was exhausted by the divine relic. Chapter 2018. Yuhan could clearly feel that Yiqing Luo's entire body was emitting a strange aura from her bones. The sharp silver threads were like sharp blades, incessantly cutting his body, as though they were embedded into his bones. Sir. The elderly looked at Yuhan, but before he could make a move, he was subdued by Yiqing Luo. He was stunned on the spot. Wolf Saint Magic's face had already sunk. This Yuhan was actually so weak? She hadn't even touched the corner of Yiqing Luo's clothes, and was tortured by her directly? Not even comparable to her own subordinates? With this kind of ability, she dared to cooperate with her? Wolf Saint Magic's expression was unfathomable. His gaze towards Yuhan was extremely chilly. Old Wolf, don't tell me. This is your trump card? Butterfly Saint Magic, who had long hidden behind Wolf Saint Magic, asked cautiously. Wolf Saint Magic didn't respond for a long time. Which meant this was indeed Wolf Saint Magic's so-called trump card. The top exponents from the Earth domain were the powerful external reinforcements that Wolf Saint Magic had invited. This is your trump card? A sharp and unkind voice was heard. This kind of trash that Yiqing Luo easily played with is your trump card? The person who said this was obviously the one who had always been at odds with Wolf Saint Magic, Pharaoh He. His face was filled with ridicule as he sneered. I thought you really had some incredible trump card to point your fingers at us and act so arrogantly. Did you really think that after his lordship went into hibernation, you're the boss? Pharaoh He. Wolf Saint Magic squinted his sinister cold eyes, reflecting a piercingly cold glint. If my trump card is useless against Yiqing Luo, then all of us will die. Are you sure you can still continue to laugh? Pharaoh He's ridiculing expression froze. Butterfly Saint Magic tugged his arm and looked at Wolf Saint Magic. Old Wolf, did you notice Yiqing Luo's sudden change? Wolf Saint Magic's sinister gaze swept past Pharaoh He coldly. Finally back to Butterfly Saint Magic, change. He raised his eyes and looked at the young lady who was floating above the red whirlpool. His pair of eyes seemed to be dyed red by that red glow. Indeed, Yiqing Luo's sudden change had no signs at all. Even when the divine artifact's power was depleted, Yiqing Luo had never experienced such an intense change. Furthermore, Yiqing Luo seemed to have changed into another person. On this side, the few of them were full of doubts. Yuhan panted heavily and groaned in pain. Yiqing Luo had no intention to kill him directly. Instead, he used the silver threads in the gourd flame fan to torture his limbs. A bone-piercing pain assaulted him. Yuhan shuddered. He suddenly understood. Yiqing Luo was planning to cripple his limbs? Want to turn him into a cripple? Yuhan's heart tightened as her vicious gaze stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. His eyes flashed with extreme unwillingness and anger. What? Not satisfied? Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as her smile was extremely enchanting. His blood-red pupils were like a blossoming poppy. The Western continent is a place that I want to protect. These people are the people I want to protect. If you want to invade our territory, then you should bring out your strength. If you don't have enough strength, then you don't have the capital to run down to the lower realms and be arrogant and despotic. Yuhan's expression turned gloomy. His body tensed up, causing the few silver threads that were restraining him to cut deeper into his bones. The heart-wrenching pain made even a man unable to endure it as he groaned. Chapter 2019. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as she raised her arm slightly. Her fair and slender fingers were encircled by a circle of red profound glow. Just like that, she gently pointed towards Yuhan's direction. Containing the power of the ocean, it set off numerous airflows. Yuhan was entangled by the silver threads and had no way to avoid this attack. A demonic red glow filled Yuhan's pupils. At this moment, he clearly saw. A burst of intense profound rays shot out from Yiqing Luo's chest. His pupils grew bigger and bigger. That red glow which enveloped Yiqing Luo's entire body was overflowing from her chest. No, not her chest, but profound jade heart. This was the reason for Yiqing Luo's sudden change? Not giving Yuhan much time to think, the red glow which encircled like a whirlpool covered the sky and earth as it pressed downwards. The young lady's alluring smile was fixed in Yuhan's eyes. The red profound glow merged with the sky full of blood rain. In front of Yuhan, it was a patch of blood color. Just as everyone thought, Yuhan was dead for sure. Lightning flashed and thunder roared in the sky, as the electric current seemed to tear a huge hole in the sky. A ray of golden profound glow descended from the sky, directly landing on that strong whirlpool which Yiqing Luo had set off. The golden light turned into a huge shield, enveloping Yuhan in it. The golden light and the red whirlpool blended together. The whirlpool continued to increase the strength and speed of its rotation. But there was no way to break that shield. The surrounding winds and clouds surged, as everything seemed to be covered by those two huge forces. Even the old and young of the Mu family, who were supporting the barrier, under the raging waves, were on the verge of collapsing, unable to support the barrier. But the thought that if the barrier which they had set up was broken, all the commoners and people from the major forces within the barrier would die in these profound waves. Thinking of this, the old and young of the Mu family were still holding on to their last breath, maintaining the barrier. Black clouds filled the entire sky, as dark as night. Only that ray of golden light tore open a huge hole, as though it had opened its bloody mouth, wanting to swallow everything in the lower realm. The terrifying and valiant Qi made everyone's breathing felt extremely oppressed. Yiqing Luo opened her arms wide. The red vortex of air current lingered around her body, as if she was wearing a blazing dress light as a feather. She narrowed her eyes slightly. Her blood-colored pupils were overflowing with color, and the golden shield in front of her faintly gave her a golden glow. The corners of her lips curled up devilishly, and there was an enchanting coldness in her eyes. Her slender fingers gripped the glowing flame fan tightly, and suddenly danced. An increasingly powerful profound energy burst forth from her body. Her chest was burning like a raging fire. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The devouring flame fan opened, and the silver threads that were dyed red shot out like flowers scattered by a goddess. The silver threads enveloped the golden barrier. Following that, Yiqing Luo's fingers tightened. The silver threads tightened as well. However, in the next instant, the energy shield flashed brightly. Gotcha! The sound of silver threads snapping could be heard. The silver threads wrapping around the energy shield were completely severed. When the crowd saw the silver threads snapping, they all drew in a breath of cold air, as they let out a fearful voice. Yiqing Luo's slender brows raised, as she stared at that energy shield with interest. She casually cut off the connection between the silver threads and the glowing flame fan. She closed the glowing flame fan. Her pink lips curled up into a faintly discernible cold arc. Since you appeared to protect this ignorant person, why not directly show yourself? A clear voice leisurely rang. Chapter 2020. There were still helpers. Everyone in the array barrier immediately looked around. What capital did the dark forces have to be able to invite such powerful helpers? 2 people from the upper realm. Now, there was another person who was even more powerful than the 2 of them? West Continent was really going to be invaded? Everyone's hearts were extremely restless. Pairs of anxious and hopeful gazes looked towards Yiqing Luo. If Yiqing Luo wasn't a match for those people, then what should they do? Unknowingly, everyone had unknowingly placed all their hopes on Yiqing Luo. His gaze was placed on that girl who was only 15 years old. This was the charm of character and ability. It had nothing to do with age. It had nothing to do with gender. Yiqing Luo raised her head as she gazed at the sky, at that golden hole which was torn. Just at this moment, the air in the sky fluctuated and suddenly turned into an extremely intense whirlpool shape. Suddenly, the hole split open again. A mass of black figures floated out from the torn hole. That black mass of figures gradually got nearer. Nearer. Obviously, they were separated by a distance of heaven and earth. However, the black mass of figures was approaching at an extremely fast speed. In a blink of an eye, they had already stopped at the side of the shield. The entire West Continent public square fell into a dead silence. That was. Under the dazzling light, a team of 30 people could be seen. They were dressed in silver armors and formed a half-encirclement as they came over in a grandiose manner. Under the bright sun, rays of light blossomed behind their backs, as though they were plated with a layer of battle armor. Disdainful stance, vast might, was displayed incisively and vividly in their actions. At the same time, an extreme pressure suddenly exploded from their bodies. That was a pressure that was born from their bones. Everyone felt as if their hearts were suddenly pressed down by a 1,000-pound boulder, and their breathing suddenly became irregular. Some of the weaker ones were even forced to crawl on the ground by this pressure. They were so shocked that their eyes were wide open, and they didn't dare to look straight at him. Terror. Other than terror, there was only terror. Who were these people? How could they have such a powerful, imposing manner? The leader's gaze swept past the public square indifferently, as though he was looking at an ant, as his gaze finally stopped on Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she exchanged glances with that person. "Oh no, little girl." Old man Tsang's voice suddenly entered his mind. They are the historiographers who maintain the balance of all realms and planes. Historian? Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she narrowed her long and narrow eyes. The power of the divine phoenix profound heart jade is too strong. It has exceeded the balance of the lower realm. No wonder the historian of peace interfered in this matter, old man Tsang continued. Yiqing Luo gave a low laugh. She raised her eyebrows and her eyes were filled with ridicule. "So, old man, are you blaming me?" Old man Tsang remained silent. It was a tacit agreement. Yiqing Luo laughed even more wantonly. Her slender fingers curled up a wisp of hair and twined it around her fingertip. Her entire person was extremely enchanting and charming. "If it wasn't for me, all of you would have died here today. You should be thanking me." Old man Tsang didn't reply and changed the topic. "That girl's body is still very weak. Before you obtain the heart-calming bead, if you want to destroy that girl, then go ahead and find trouble for her." Yiqing Luo's smile froze. His blood-red eyes flickered slightly. Chapter 2021. The official in charge had an upright and plain-spoken expression, as he was extremely solemn. He looked at Yiqing Luo expressionlessly, as his voice was icy cold. "Yiqing Luo, you're from Nirvana Realm, your profound grade cannot exceed the burden of Nirvana Realm." Yiqing Luo lowered her head, as she didn't say a single word. The official in charge frowned, as his imposing manner and prestige unknowingly increased by a few notches. "Yiqing Luo, this official is speaking to you. How dare you ignore me?" The crowd looked at each other in dismay. No matter if it was the royal family army or the dark forces, they were all stunned by this 30-man team. This team, which side were they helping? The powerful imposing manner on them, apparently. As compared to those two people from the upper realm, they were much stronger. That lass's imposing manner. Her imposing manner. Suddenly, Mu Xiao stared at Yiqing Luo, as his old face turned shocked. After he said that, he realized something, as he immediately shut his mouth, as his white brows creased tightly, as he looked towards Mu Lai. Mu Lai nodded, as his expression was extremely grave. However, even if Mu Xiao managed to stop his voice in time, there were still many people among the crowd, as they heard what Mu Xiao said. Instantly, everyone's attention shifted from those 30 people onto Yiqing Luo. This look made everyone's guts broken. That red whirlpool beneath Yi-Ching Luo's feet slowly dissipated. Her body slowly descended from mid-air as it landed onto the ground. Her entire body, at this instance, no longer had the initial arrogance and wanton. Like the inflated balloon was lightly pricked by someone. Instantly it went blank. What was wrong with Yi-Ching Luo? Why did she suddenly lose her battle-imposing manner? If Yi-Ching Luo admitted defeat, then all of them wouldn't. Yi-Ching Luo, the official standing behind the official in charge, walked out of the team in quick step. He raised his hand as he tugged Yi-Ching Luo's shoulder, as his voice was extremely dignified. Since you're so uncooperative, then based on the strange energy on your body, I'll bring you back to Balance Prison and interrogate you severely. Pfft! An unstoppable clear laughter broke the oppressive atmosphere at this moment. The young lady who had her head lowered slowly raised it. At the same time, just as the official stretched out his hand to touch her, her footsteps moved slightly. Her figure had already flashed, as she was just 5 steps away from the official. You! The scribe's expression was sullen, unable to believe that he actually allowed a little girl from the lower realms to avoid his hand. Yi-Ching Luo's lips twitched in disdain. Her eyes, as she stared fixedly at the official. At this moment, the red whirlpool around her, as she stared at the official. By now, as the red whirlpool had completely disappeared, a hint of mockery appeared on her beautiful face. Her voice was clear and sweet, but the words she spat out were extremely sharp. What does the burden have to do with me? Ching, as he Luo, he said. Yi-Ching Luo smiled again, and pointed at the Wolf Saint technique, then turned around and pointed at the shield by the side. Isn't it the Balance Historian? Then, when the Dark Forces used the Nirvana Realm to invade the Western continent and take control of the Nirvana Realm, why didn't you, the Balance Historian, show yourself? Yi-Ching Luo's face sunk as her cold eyes revealed a sliver of chilliness. Yi-Ching Luo was fearless as she laughed in ridicule. Don't put on an awe-inspiring righteous look in front of me. You can't even settle the matter before me, so what right do you have to accuse me of destroying the balance? Chapter 2022. That historian's face turned steely green. Perhaps he had never seen such a rude person from the lower realms. As balance historians, they shuttled through various realms and planes. No matter who it was, they would be respectful to them. But Yi-Ching Luo was so daring. The historian clenched his teeth as he stretched out his hand and grabbed towards Yi-Ching Luo. Step down. The deep voice was calm and indifferent. It also stopped that historian's action. The head historian's expression was calm as he looked at Yi-Ching Luo coldly. Balance historians are not omnipotent. It's not possible to keep an eye on the changes and everything in the world at all times. He explained. Moreover, even if the balance historians found out about the dark forces, they need to report it to the upper realm before they can take any further action. The upper realm already knows about this matter. What the dark forces will do next is the upper realm's matter. What we can do is to try our best to prevent the imbalance from happening, that's all. He was really pushing the blame away cleanly. Yi-Ching Luo looked at them with a smile which didn't look like a smile, as her smile became more and more ridiculing. In this way, even if the dark forces really invaded the West continent, the upper realm didn't take any action, so they don't intend to bother about this matter? Allowing the dark forces to collude with the people from the Earth realm to control Nirvana realm, making the people of the lower realms unable to live? And then, after all these happened, using a dignified reason to do something on the surface, to cover up all the ugliness? Yi-Ching Luo was extremely incisive. Every word, sharp and incisive, simply piercing their hearts. The historian's expression turned gloomy. Even if they were expressionless, the head historian's face also turned black. But they couldn't refute. They had to admit that what Yi-Ching Luo said was indeed so. The atmosphere froze for a moment. The head historian continued, everything in the world is controlled by fate. If the West Continent can't escape this calamity, then it will be the West Continent's calamity. This doesn't mean that you can violate the balance of the lower realms, using energy that doesn't belong to the lower realms to kill people. This person is not someone from the lower realms. Yiqing Luo sneered. No matter if he's from the lower realms or not, the energy you use has affected the balance of Nirvana realm. The head historian's gaze suddenly turned biting cold. Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly. They couldn't even protect the peace of the lower realm. There was no need to talk about balance. These people knew that the dark forces were colluding with the people of the land and doing things that violated the balance of the Nirvana realm. However, he still held on to her tightly and refused to let go. He didn't care about the dark faction or the Earth realm old man at all. Could it be that they did not violate the balance of the Nirvana realm? Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered to waste her breath on these historians. She looked at them and said, "Now I will give you two choices. First, go back to where you came from. Second, take this group of people and go back to where you came from." As she spoke, she pointed at the sacred wolf technique and the energy barrier. After a pause, she laughed even more wildly. "Of course, I suggest you to choose the second option. How about this, when I know the consequences of the dark forces and the few people from the upper realm who smuggled themselves into the Nirvana realm, maybe I will take the initiative to turn myself in." The head historian took a deep look at Yiqing Luo. Then, he looked in the direction of the dark forces and the old man from the Earth realm. A chill ran down Wolf St. Law's spine. He naturally recognized the origins of these people. Chapter 2023. The reason why the Wolf St. Law dared to appear in the Western Continent and invade the Western Continent was because of the Wolf St. Law. This was because he believed that these so-called Heavenly Path historians would never be able to discover the existence of the dark forces. But unexpectedly Yiqing Luo's profound energy, which had exceeded the limits of Nirvana realm, attracted the Heavenly Ways historian. Earlier, Yiqing Luo had easily entangled Yuhan in the silver thread, not giving Yuhan any chance to move or counterattack at all. Where did such a powerful force come from? Wolf Sacred Law knew Yuhan's true strength too well. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so. On the other side, the Earth Realm old man's face was pale as he stared at the 30 scribes in a daze. His stomach was filled with terror. They violated the Treaty of Equilibrium, quietly descended to the lower realms, and fought with the people of the lower realms. If these historians brought them back to their own place, they would not be able to do anything to them. Even if he didn't die, he would lose half his life. Since I, the scribe, have discovered this matter, I will naturally resolve it, the chief scribe said calmly. Right now, the most important problem is your secret. Yiqing Luo's eyes flickered with a complicated look. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared. His eyes were filled with arrogance and willfulness from before. She smiled and said, "No, no, no. You may have misunderstood me." She raised her hand and pressed it against her chest. A warm, profound light enveloped her palm. That light was extremely bright. The chief scribe casually glanced at it, and then a look of surprise appeared on his face. Yiqing Luo, profound grade. Sky profound first grade. Profound sky? Only a sky Xian? How could this be? The head historian recalled the scene earlier, when Yiqing Luo's flame suddenly dissipated. His expression froze. Suddenly his body moved and he appeared right in front of Yiqing Luo. The leading scribe was extremely fast. Yiqing Luo was totally unable to react in time. His wrist was firmly grabbed by the head scribe. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased. "Sir Recorder, are you intending to use force to bully a weak lady like me?" The leading scribe remained silent. A scorching dark force emerged from his palm. In an instant, it was transmitted from Yiqing Luo's wrist into her meridians. Yiqing Luo instinctively wanted to resist. However, the hand that was gripping her wrist was so strong that she couldn't break free at all. She could only allow the chief scribe to search for the dark force in her body. It was as if he wanted to confirm exactly what level her true strength was at. The audience was silent. Everyone's gazes were anxiously concentrated on Yi-Ching Luo and the head historian. No one from the Dark Coalition dared to move either. The 30 scribes were simply too shocked. Right at that moment, the leading scribe's expression grew even more complicated. From the initial shock to the later shock, and finally the gaze which he shot at Yi-Ching Luo, revealed a sliver of disbelief. "Can you let go now?" Yi-Ching Luo asked unhappily. The leading scribe was stunned. He was actually extremely obedient, moving his hand away. His gaze was fixed on Yi-Ching Luo without blinking. Yi-Ching Luo retracted her hand and took out a handkerchief to wipe her wrist where the head historian had grabbed it. Her long and narrow eyes were slightly raised, and her eyes were full of mockery. "Are you sure now?" "Yes, yes," the head historian replied in a daze, as though he had not regained his senses from the earlier shock. "Sir Librarian," the scribe behind him went forward with a steely green face, "is she really a sky profound cultivator?" The head historian was still looking at Yi-Ching Luo, and after some time, he spat out a word, "Yes." Chapter 2024. How could this be possible? If she's in the sky profound grade, that power earlier. The historian was in disbelief. The leader's face sunk as he suddenly turned around and looked at the team of historians behind him. "All of you, capture all these people who sneaked into the lower realm and the people from the dark forces." The moment he said that, the crowd was in an uproar. The royal army and the commoners cheered. On the other hand, the dark forces were terrified. The 3 holy techniques and 4 pharaohs' faces were ashen as they stared at Wolf Saint Fa resentfully. That historian was stunned. "Lord Librarian, this is not possible. We obviously sense the change in her profound grade. She definitely has an unspeakable secret on her. For the peace of Nirvana realm, we must capture her back." "Shut up," the leader of the historians berated in a low voice as he carefully looked towards Yi-Ching Luo's direction. This glance made that historian's heart tremble. He targeted Yi-Ching Luo because he felt that this 15-year-old young lady was too arrogant and insolent, not giving Yi-Ching Luo a taste of her own medicine. This young lady was probably even more unreasonable. But Lord Librarian's gaze and the shocked expression earlier. Apparently, Lord Librarian was afraid of this 15-year-old young lady. The historian immediately shut his mouth and didn't say another word. Instead, he followed his orders and along with the other historians, they charged towards the elderly from the Earth realm and the dark forces. For a moment, the entire public square was in chaos. The people from the dark forces kept fleeing in all directions. But how could their speed match up to the balanced historians who came from the Heaven Dao space? The leader of the historians stood among the crowd. That pair of icy cold dignified gaze had been fixated on Yi-Ching Luo without blinking. As though he was deep in thought about something. Wolf Saint Fa, who was standing far away, saw this scene. His face was sinister and extremely terrifying. He clenched his fists tightly as he gritted his teeth while looking at Yi-Ching Luo. The young lady crossed her arms in a leisurely manner as she looked at the people from the dark forces being captured by the historians with a smile which didn't look like a smile. The anger in Wolf Saint Fa's heart surged. "Wolf Saint Fa." A weak and delicate voice was heard from behind him. Wolf Saint Fa turned his head around fiercely. Behind him, a disheveled woman dressed in blood-stained clothes walked over. Her entire body was covered in blood. Her meticulously dressed face was also covered in sticky blood. It looked very much like a walking zombie. Lang Shengfa frowned. "Fei-er." The woman nodded happily, the blood on her body dripping down. "Wolf Saint Technique, it's me, it's me." This lady wasn't anyone else. She was the scum whom Yi-Ching Luo had thrown out earlier, Yan Zhenfei. When Yan Zhenfei saw that Wolf Saint Technique recognized her, she smiled happily. However, The wolf's sacred technique could only see the blood flowing down her face. Wolf Xingfa frowned in disgust and was about to retreat to avoid Yan Zhenfei's embrace. But he heard Yan Zhenfei say, "Wolf Saint Art, before we came, Father specially told me a way to escape from West Billow Square. Fei will take you there." The Wolf Saint technique's footsteps halted. He suppressed the disgust in his heart and caught Yan Zhenfei, who was covered in blood. "Fei is what you said true?" Wolf Saint technique asked. "But we need to make use of others to attract their attention. I'm afraid we won't be able to match up to their speed." Yan Zhenfei didn't notice the tightness in Wolf Saint technique's body, as she said softly. Chapter 2025. In Yan Zhenfei's opinion. This time, the Yan family had joined the Dark Coalition's camp. It also meant that the Yan family and the Dark Coalition would live and die together. The Wolf Saint technique was what she would rely on in the future. No matter what, she had to hug the Wolf Saint technique's thigh tightly. As long as the Wolf Saint law was still alive, they would have a chance to make a comeback. And at that time, she, who had always been by Wolf Saint Fa's side, was definitely the greatest contributor. The Wolf Saint technique's eyes flashed as he looked at the woman in his arms. His 5 fingers moved, and in the end, he still pointed to the side, at the few pharaohs who were preparing to execute dark secret arts and escape. The 4 pharaohs huddled together and quickly chanted an incantation. It was obvious that the 4 of them were planning to escape from this place. The Wolf Saint Law's eyes turned cold. Just as the curse was about to form, he suddenly hugged Yan Zhenfei, his body flashing as he charged beside the 4 pharaohs. He reached out and grabbed the shoulder of one of the pharaohs and threw him in the direction of the scribe. The other 3 pharaohs had yet to react. A stream of black mysterious Yin-Chi shrouded down. The 3 pharaohs, Wolf Saint Art, and Yan Zhenfei disappeared in the profound Yin-Chi. A few scribes realized the pharaoh's curse and rushed over to stop it. However, a person was thrown in front of them, smashing into them and stopping them in their tracks. By the time they had tied up the pharaoh that had been thrown out, the Wolf Saint technique and the other 3 pharaohs had already disappeared. "Lord Scribe, 4 have escaped," the scribe reported to the scribe. The librarian retracted his gaze from Yiqing Luo and squinted his cold eyes. If the news of us appearing in the lower realm were to spread, and 4 of us escaped, it would cause panic in the Nirvana realm. Of all the realms, this was the lowest of the lower realms. Once the news of the heavenly way reached the ears of those ordinary people from the lower realms, it would definitely cause them to feel uneasy. Especially when he knew that 4 people had escaped and had not been caught by the court historian. The people in the lower realms would all live in fear and trepidation. At that time, it would also affect the balanced development of the Nirvana realm. This subordinate knows his mistake. The scribes immediately knelt down. "What's the use of knowing your sins? Hurry up and capture him," the scribe shouted. The scribes looked at each other in dismay, their faces full of difficulty. They used the dark secret technique. As for where they went, this subordinate does not know. The historiographer's expression instantly became ruthless. Just as he was about to fly into a rage, a sweet voice drifted over. "I have already placed the soul-chasing powder on their bodies. As long as you follow the soul-chasing powder, you will be able to find their whereabouts within 3 days. Her voice paused for a moment before she laughed mockingly. "Of course, if you can't find them within 3 days with the help of the soul-chasing powder, then there's nothing I can do." The historiographer and librarian's gazes fell onto Yiqing Luo. Looking at Yiqing Luo's face, it was filled with contempt. The scribes' faces sank. But this matter was indeed their negligence, so they couldn't refute it. In particular, in the end, they still needed to rely on this 15-year-old girl to hunt down the 4 people who had escaped. Yi Fengru, who was entangled with Nangong Firen by the side, suddenly froze when he heard Yiqing Luo's words. Soul-chasing powder? Yiqing Luo actually had the soul-chasing powder? This was the soul-chasing powder which he had once used on Yiqing Luo in order to track her. Only a dark medicine master was able to refine the soul-chasing powder. Yiqing Luo had only touched it once, and she knew how to refine it? Chapter 2026. Moreover, when did she use the soul-chasing powder on Wolf Saint Technique and the other pharaohs? Wolf Saint Technique and the rest actually didn't notice it? Just when Yi Fengru wasn't paying attention, he was forcefully pressed onto the ground by Nangong Firen. Nangong Firen took out a bundle of rope from his realm ring and tied Yi Fengru up tightly. Just as he was tied up, Nangong Lin broke free from Wei Bailey's restraint and rushed to Yi Fengru's side. Brother Ru, are you alright? Yi Fengru didn't even look at her but stared fiercely at Nangong Firen. Let me go. Have a good rest. I'll let you go after you've calmed down. Nangong Firen pressed his forehead tiredly. Pausing, he looked at Nangong Lin, whose face was filled with worry, and sighed helplessly. Ru, you should really take a good look at the person in front of you. Lin's feelings for you are sincere. Look at her. You've hurt me to such a state and she hasn't even expressed a single word of concern. She's only thinking about you. Don't let your feelings cloud your heart. Yi Fengru didn't say a word as the viciousness on his face didn't dissipate for a long time. The situation in the public square turned around very quickly. Those few Wolf Saint Techniques and those pharaohs who were thrown out were also restrained by the court officials. Apart from the dark forces, the small forces of the Nirvana realm, such as the Yen clan and the Shangguan clan, were forced to kneel on the ground by the pressure released by the scribes. Mu families old and young released the barrier. The commoners cheered excitedly as they shouted Yiqing Luo's name and praised the court officials. To be able to protect their own homes and survive. To them, this was the most beautiful thing. Those small families who joined the dark forces because of the temptation of the dark forces kept kowtowing and begging for mercy. None of them had expected this. In a short span of 1 hour, there was actually such an earth-shattering change. Originally they thought that the powerful external assistance and trump card that Wolf Saint Technique had invited would allow them to obtain the final victory. It would allow them to obtain the West Continent. But this so-called external assistance couldn't even compare to a finger of Yiqing Luo's. Annoyance and remorse filled his heart, whereas those from Three Springs sect who admitted defeat heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, in the end, they chose to be loyal to the Three Springs sect and not Yi Fengru. Otherwise, they would really become rebels and traitors recorded in the historical record. Furthermore, it would cause the Three Springs sect to be cursed. After settling everything, the historian counted the number of people and immediately looked towards Yiqing Luo. These stowaways and dark forces, I will inform the upper realm and punish them. Before he could finish his words, Yiqing Luo took a step forward. The distance between the two of them closed. He was only 1 step away. Yiqing Luo bent over slightly and leaned close to his ear, using a voice that only the two of them could hear. No matter what you saw on me, regarding my matters, I hope that you can keep it a secret. The scribe was startled. Yiqing Luo had already retreated a few steps, pulling a distance away from him. She smiled at him and said, Then, I'll have to trouble Lord Historiographer to make a trip today. The common people of the West Continent will certainly remember the actions of the historiographer in their hearts. The commoners immediately agreed and expressed their gratitude. Some of them even knelt down. This was the first time the scribes had encountered such a situation. For a moment they were all stunned on the spot. Looking at those passionate commoners, they were at a loss on what to do. The icy cold face of the scribe faintly revealed a trace of embarrassment. Chapter 2027. In the end, they really had no way to deal with the people's enthusiasm. They chose to escape. The historiographers used the heavenly rope to tie those people from the dark forces, as well as the elderly man from the earth realm and Yuhan tightly. Historiographer. Yuhan was pushed and thrown towards the direction where those people from the dark forces were. Yuhan's face was steely green as she struggled with all her might, Do you know who I belong to? The historiographer narrowed his cold eyes as he swept a cold glance at Yuhan. As someone from the upper realm, illegally entering the earth realm is a crime of death. No matter who you belong to, as long as you violate the balance of the realm, this historiographer has the right to arrest you. If you dare to touch me, you will regret it. Yuhan gritted her teeth. Facing such a threat, the historiographer had seen it many times, so he didn't put it to heart. After tying those people up, the historiographer's gaze swept towards those small forces who were kneeling on the ground and shivering. This gaze made those small forces feel weak all over. Patriarch Yen fell onto the ground, his face filled with fear as he begged loudly for mercy. The historiographer spoke calmly. You are all the citizens of Nirvana realm. Your existence has nothing to do with us. This historiographer will not interfere, so this historiographer will not bring all of you away. When the few forces heard that, they immediately raised their heads in hope, as though they didn't believe what the historiographer said was true. The next moment, the historiographer continued to speak, which made those small forces' hopes fall to the bottom again. But you colluded with external forces, attempted to invade the West continent, and even destroyed Nirvana realm. This kind of thinking already has the inclination of going against the continent. Regarding this matter, this historiographer will inform the upper realm, and they will decide how to deal with it. Upper realm's decision? This matter had to be brought to the upper realm? If it was brought to the upper realm, that would mean that they had betrayed their own home, betrayed the land that they grew up in. This matter would not only spread to Nirvana realm, but also to the various large realms of the upper realm. Patriarch Yen suddenly knelt down, as he crawled towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Miss Yi, Madam Yi, Fairy Yi, I beg you, save the Yen family, as long as you say it, as long as you don't haggle, that madam will definitely not fuss over it. He speedily knelt down in front of Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo's eyelids drooped down as she looked at the disheveled Patriarch Yen, who was drenched in blood, as she ridiculed. Patriarch Yen, you asked me to save you, but have you ever thought that the daughter whom you've pampered so dearly had just helped Wolf Saint Technique to escape from this place? She bent down and looked down at him. Her aura was haughty and arrogant. The Wolf Saint Law is the mastermind behind the invasion of the West Wave continent and colluding with the people of the land. Yen Zhenfei helping the Wolf Saint Law leave indicates that the West Wave continent and even the Nirvana realm will experience a crisis like today. She paused and propped herself up. Her sharp eyes swept across the people who had quietened down one by one. This time, it's fortunate that we have the help of the historian of balance. What about the next time? Even if I'm willing to plead for you, will these commoners be willing? Not willing. The commoners responded in unison. They looked at the small forces that had joined the underground forces and wished they could rush forward and strangle them. How would they be willing to let them off? Patriarch Yan's face couldn't be distinguished if it was blood or tears. With a sobbing tone, he kowtowed with all his might. Miss Yi, my Yen family's only daughter is Xiao Yi alone. You're Xiao Yi's friend, on account of Xiao Yi's face. Please plead for our Yen family. I guarantee you that in future, the Yen family will absolutely only have Xiao Yi alone. Asterisk. Chapter 2028. Mentioning Yen Xiao Yi Qing Luo's ridiculing smile slowly froze. Her brows creased slightly as she fixed her gaze on the hopeful look on Yen family's patriarch, falling into silence. Yen family was after all Yen Xiao Yi's family. This was Yen Xiao Yi's father, Yen Xiao Yi's kin. Although Yen Xiao Yi had always been nonchalant, in actual fact, which 15 or 16-year-old young lady didn't yearn for familial love? If it was because of this matter, Yen family only recognized Yen Xiao Yi as their daughter. If they were willing to treat Yen Xiao Yi well. For Xiao Yi, staying in Yen family was not impossible. But how much sincerity did they have? Seeing Yi Qing Luo's silence, Yen family's patriarch knew that his words had moved Yi Qing Luo. Immediately, he became even more attentive. Madame Yen, who was standing by the side, immediately crawled over. Both of their words were heartfelt, expressing that they would treat Yen Xiaoyi well. Looking at those Yen family's attentive look, Yiqing Luo pursed her lips and finally compromised. She sighed softly. How do I believe that you all sincerely want to treat Xiaoyi well? Time will prove everything. Xiaoyi is Miss Ye's friend. How would we dare to lie to you? Madame Yen hurriedly opened her mouth. Yiqing Luo frowned. Yen family's patriarch immediately pinched Madame Yen fiercely and put on a smiling face as he flattered Yiqing Luo. We are naturally sincere. Xiaoyi is our biological daughter, and in the past we were blindfolded by that slut Feier. Now that we know our mistake, we will definitely pamper Xiaoyi dearly. Madame Yen realized that she had said the wrong thing and hurriedly nodded. Right, Xiaoyi came out from my belly, I naturally love her dearly. She watched as the two of them fought to be the first to pour out their thoughts and love for Yen Xiaoyi. The more Yiqing Luo heard, the tighter her slender brows creased. She could tell that the Yen family was only trying to survive, which was why they were so diligent. This kind of sincerity should be more of fear. But if they could let Xiaoyi enjoy the warmth of familial love, it wasn't impossible. She pursed her lips as she raised her eyes to look at the librarian. Just as he was about to speak, a voice filled with disdain and mockery suddenly descended from the sky. I don't need your hypocritical sincerity. Hearing this voice, everyone immediately raised their heads and looked in the direction of the sound. In the air, a huge nine-tailed fox was approaching from afar. 9 fox tails danced in the wind. A white nine-tailed fox. White holy beast nine-tailed fox. Isn't that the symbol of the Overlord? The Overlord is here? The legendary and rare Overlord had come? Everyone in the West Wave Square was excited. The scribes heard the people exclaiming, Lord Di Zun. The expressions on their faces froze. Venerable Sovereign? Could he be referring to that sovereign? Thinking of that person, the 30 scribes immediately lined up straight and respectfully welcomed the nine-tailed fox's arrival. The huge nine-tailed fox suddenly landed on the ground. The sparks burning in his limbs were gradually extinguished. Her 9 flamboyant fox tails swayed nonstop. Several figures jumped down from the back of the nine-tailed fox. Jinzi, Xiaoyi, why are you guys here? Yiqing Luo went forward to welcome them. The few people who came down were Qiao Jin, who was hugging Yen Xiaoyi by the waist, as well as Zhou Mo, Gui Wu, Ghost Doctor and the others. Chapter 2029. Something has happened to Three Springs Sect. How can we possibly travel leisurely with those people from Heavenly Academy? Qiao Jin carried Yen Xiaoyi as he came to Yiqing Luo's side. Yen Xiaoyi's hand was looped around Qiao Jin's neck as she looked calmly at the direction of Yen family. There wasn't the slightest bit of emotion on that delicate little face, as though she was looking at a stranger. However, Yen family didn't notice Yen Xiaoyi's attitude. The minute they saw Yen Xiaoyi appear, Yen family's patriarch and Madame Yen immediately rushed over as they tried their best to put on an amiable smile as they diligently smiled at Yen Xiaoyi. Xiaoyi, father and mother know we're in the wrong. In future, we will definitely dote on you and pamper you. Madame Yen looked at Yen Xiaoyi's pale little face as her heart ached so much that she was about to cry. Look at our Xiaoyi, why is your expression so ugly? When mother returns home later, I will personally stew chicken soup for you to nurse your body back to health. Saying that, Madame Yen stretched out her hand as she tried to touch Yen Xiaoyi's face. But Yen Xiaoyi turned her face away as she avoided Madame Yen's hand. She looked at the embarrassed Madame Yen with ridicule. I hate to eat chicken the most. As my mother, you don't even know this. On what basis do you have to talk to me sincerely? Madame Yen was stunned as her face turned slightly pale. To this daughter who had no use at all since young, Madame Yen had never tried to understand Yen Xiaoyi at all. Towards Yen Xiaoyi's likes and dislikes, she knew nothing at all. Now hearing Yan Xiaoyi's ridiculing words, other than embarrassment, Madame Yen felt even more upset and vexed. Both of them were her daughters. One was heaven's favored child, being pampered, growing up in the bright and dazzling circle. The other was a street rat, receiving cold treatment, growing up in the dark and gloomy corners. Xiao Yi, don't be willful. Yen family's patriarch didn't have Madame Yan's soft heart. The minute he heard Yen Xiaoyi's ridiculing voice, it was like a slap to their faces. Yen family's patriarch was filled with uneasiness, afraid that Yi Qing Luo would dismiss the idea of saving them because of Yen Xiaoyi's attitude. Willful. Yen Xiaoyi sneered, tilted her head and laughed with extreme disdain. Patriarch Yen, I'm merely unwilling to go in the direction that you've planned. How is that willful? You. Patriarch Yen clenched his fists. Looking at this rebellious and disobedient daughter, the Yen family head couldn't help but be filled with rage. He suppressed his anger and tried his best to put on a kind smile. Child, you don't even know how to call me daddy? You are the child of your parents. No matter how willful you want to be, your parents will tolerate it. Ha ha ha! Yen Xiaoyi laughed out loud without giving them any face. What a pity, I'm not interested in your tolerance. She rested her head on Xiao Jin's shoulder. She rolled up her hair and played with it in her hand. His entire person looked extremely lazy. Patriarch Yen, why do you have to smile at someone you hate so much just to survive? Don't you feel flustered? Yen Xiaoyi, I'm your father. When Patriarch Yen heard Yen Xiaoyi's sarcastic words, he couldn't hold it in. After yelling, he immediately quieted down and softened his voice. As a father, how can I hate my own daughter? Yen Xiaoyi was completely indifferent to the two's goodwill. She calmly swept a glance at the Yen family's group. Her smile was a little relaxed and a little willful. Yen Xiaoyi, ever since I left the Yen family, I'm no longer a member of the Yen family. The so-called father and mother, to me, are of no importance. Her voice was very soft. She spoke extremely slowly. Chapter 20:30. Every single word that Yen Xiaoyi said. Patriarch Yan's expression turned darker by a shade. By the time her last word landed, Patriarch Yan's expression had already turned as black as charcoal. His entire body tensed up and the muscles on his face were trembling slightly. Apparently, he was trying his best to control his own anger. But Yen Xiaoyi seemed as though she hadn't noticed it at all. She continued to rub her hair. She continued to be lazy, as though she didn't care about anything. Suddenly, Yen Xiaoyi raised her head as her gaze turned towards the librarian's direction. Her lips curled as she gave a sweet smile. Today, while Heavenly Way's librarian is around, I have to make a clear declaration. I, Yen Xiaoyi, have never enjoyed any familial love since young. All along, I've been treated coldly, bullied, and tormented. Now, I've long passed the age where I need my parents' so-called love. So, I, Yen Xiaoyi, will leave the Yen family, and from today onwards, I have nothing to do with the Yen family. After this sentence was said, Patriarch Yen was completely enraged. Yen Xiaoyi, you're my Yen Tianming's daughter. The blood on you is the Yen family's blood. Do you want to end it cleanly? His eyes were filled with rage. Now that the Yen family is in trouble, you want to abandon the Yen family? An ungrateful person like you, aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning? Yen Xiaoyi couldn't be bothered with Patriarch Yen. She yawned as she lazily leaned into Qiao Jin's arms. Slut Jin, the journey is tiring. From the looks of it, there's no problem here. Let's return to the old residence first. Yen Xiaoyi. Patriarch Yen was extremely furious. I'm your biological father. This is your biological mother. You don't even acknowledge your own parents. Do you still have any humanity? He roared as he stared at Yi Qing Luo. Such a cold-blooded slut. Aren't you afraid that one day her cold-blooded will be used on you? Never. Never. Two voices spoke at the same time. Yi Qing Luo and Yen Xiaoyi's four eyes met, as their lips curled in tacit understanding, revealing a smile. Yan Xiaoyi immediately looked at Patriarch Yan. Not everyone is like you, not knowing what feelings are. True feelings need to be exchanged with one's sincerity. She paused and laughed self-deprecatingly. Forget it. You won't understand even if I tell you this. It's just a waste of time. No matter how the Yan family cursed at him. Yan Xiaoyi's expression didn't change at all. It was as if he had already given up on this kinship. Therefore, no matter what the Yan family did, they could not stir up even the slightest bit of emotion in her heart. She looked at Xiao Jin carrying Yan Xiaoyi and walking towards the other end of the square. Yiqing Luo smiled sweetly. Patriarch Chao Yan shook his head helplessly. It seems that you have hurt Xiaoyi very deeply. Since Xiaoyi doesn't need you, then, what will be your ending? Pray silently that the upper realm will give you a lighter punishment. Yes, yes. How could she not need us? We are her real parents. That child is currently in a fit of anger. She only said those words out of anger. Patriarch Yan's heart tightened as he hurriedly replied. Yiqing Luo smiled faintly as she shook her head. If you treat her sincerely, then let her off. I promise you, I will pass all of you to Xiaoyi sincerely. All of us are her closest kin. Saying that, Yiqing Luo didn't look at the Yan family anymore. Instead she turned around and looked at the librarian. I shall not disturb the various librarians. The librarian looked at Yiqing Luo for some time, as he hesitated to ask the words that were at the tip of his tongue. Chapter 2031. 30 people, as awe-inspiring as when they came. He led the people from the Dark Coalition who were tied up into a ball and was about to tear the hole in the sky. Historiographer's footsteps stopped abruptly. The 29 historiographers behind him also stopped in their track. A sudden clap of thunder resounded in the sky. In a split second, the entire West Lake Square was plunged into a burst of lightning and thunder. The atmosphere was extremely treacherous and terrifying. Historiographer squinted his eyes as he raised his eyes to look at the flickering lightning in the sky. That usually expressionless face revealed a trace of astonishment. Yiqing Luo's heart thumped. An ominous premonition arose spontaneously. Indeed, this matter was not that easy to solve. As expected, amidst the lightning, a team of about 100 people gradually appeared. Dressed in black dazzling armor, their imposing manner was overbearing. The leader was a handsome man dressed in a brocade robe. The two teams collided face to face. Historiographer frowned. Why does Godless Island's young island master have the time to come to Nirvana Realm to join in the fun? The man who was addressed as young island master smiled lightly. I'll not beat around the bush. Today I'm here to ask for 2 people from Historiographer. Historiographer's expression congealed, as he seemed to have guessed who the people young island master wanted to ask for were. These 2 people are my father's close friends. Today I'm here on my father's request to ask for them. Historiographer shouldn't not give Godless Island face right. Young island master smiled like a spring breeze. His voice was extremely gentle. But the meaning in his words had already revealed a blatant threat. If historiographer refused to hand them over to young island master, which meant that historiographer had offended the entire godless island. Although compared to the upper realm or heavenly way, Godless Island was not considered as a large force. Moreover, Godless Island was located in Nirvana Realm. No matter what, to the people from the upper realm, this was just a force from the lower realm. But Godless Island was different, just like the Imperial Palace in Nirvana Realm. They were all legendary existences. Nirvana Realm's #1 evil force, #1 island. A force that was comparable to the Imperial Palace. Even the historians who came from the Heavenly Law had to show some respect to the Godless Island when they were facing it. Didn't the people of Godless Island not care about worldly affairs? Why did the young island master personally make a move this time? These 2 people were from the Earth domain. Since when did the godless island have such a close relationship with the people from the Earth domain? The more he thought about it, the more terrifying it was. The scribe stopped himself from guessing. To him, all he had to do was to eliminate the imbalances in all planes and planes. That was enough. He did not want to participate in the open and covert struggles between the major forces. Since the young island lord has come personally to ask for him, I naturally have no reason to refuse. The scribe keeper regained his composure, his expression devoid of emotion. The young island master nodded in satisfaction. The corner of his mouth had yet to curl up. He heard the librarian continuing, "But the two people whom young island lord wants are handed over to me by Miss Yi-Ching Luo. If young island lord really wants to take these two people away, why not have a good discussion with Miss Yi?" The young island master's smile froze at the corner of his lips. This damned old fox. He didn't want to offend either side, so he chose this compromise method? Looking at the young island master's gloomy expression, the librarian shrugged helplessly. I am only the historiographer to balance the balance. Whether to bring them away or to leave them behind is naturally up to the both of you. As he spoke, he looked at the sky again. We don't have much time. If we don't get any results, I'll take them away first. After you're done negotiating, you can come to the heavenly law realm and find me to get them back. Asterisk. Chapter 2032. The young island master knew that it was useless to force the historiographer. It might even affect the peace between the two sides. He suppressed the rage in his heart and turned his gaze towards Yi-Ching Luo's direction. Ever since young island master appeared, Yi-Ching Luo had been sizing him up. She saw him looking at her. Yi-Ching Luo's lips curled as she revealed a smirk of ridicule. Godless island. Should I call you eldest young master Shi Shanglan Shi or young island lord? Hearing Yi-Ching Luo's words, young island master's eyes revealed an appreciative smile. He laughed softly. Ching Luo is indeed intelligent, to recognize me just like that? His smile was as gentle as when he was Shi Shanglan. Those few people behind Yi-Ching Luo who had interacted with Shi Shanglan before were all stunned. The young island master in front of him. His appearance and aura were completely different from Shi Shanglan. But when this smile appeared, he was stunned. This was indeed Shi Shanglan. So, Shi Shanglan's identity was fake. This person was the young island master of Godless Island. Where is the real Shi Shanglan? What did you do to him? Yan Xiaoyi gripped Xiao Jin's robes tightly as she questioned coldly. The young island master raised his eyebrows and smiled. Hey, isn't this my fiancée, Xiaoyi? No wonder you're Ching Luo's good sister. Even in the godless array, you were poisoned by our godless island's poison, and you're still alive. He clicked his tongue. This young patriarch really wants to see, where is your limit, Ching Luo? I think you might not have this chance in this lifetime. Yi-Ching Luo's fingers clenched tightly. The poison in Yan Xiaoyi's body was indeed Godless Island's poison. The young island master laughed heartily. Yan Xiaoyi spoke again. Let me ask you, where is Shi Shanglan? Her voice trembled a little. His voice was filled with anger. The young island master's mocking gaze swept towards Xiao Jin, who was carrying Yan Xiaoyi, as he laughed heartily. What? Do you miss your weak and useless fiancé? You're talking about another man in front of your lover. Aren't you afraid that he'll be jealous? Yan Xiaoyi's face darkened. She emphasized every word. Where is Shi Shanglan? This time, he spat out the words with great force. Her throat tickled and she coughed violently. The young island lord laughed mockingly and said, This young lord needs his identity, so he naturally can't live in this world. However, that brat is also infatuated with you. He clearly remembers all the memories he had with you, and he wholeheartedly wants to marry you into the Shi clan in the future. He shook his head and clicked his tongue. Sigh, what a pity for that infatuated boy. In the end, his woman was stolen by another man, and he even lost his life. Yan Xiaoyi's coughing became increasingly violent. She gripped Xiao Jin's sleeves tightly, her chest heaving up and down. It was obvious that he was furious. Xiao Jin comforted her gently. Young Island Lord, are you trying to make things difficult for us, or are you trying to get Yu Han and that old man to leave? Yiqing Luo raised her voice, overshadowing the sound of their confrontation. She leisurely walked toward the young island master. Her fiery red dress looked even more enchanting under the sky full of blood. However, just based on what you said just now, I say that you can forget about taking away those two people who snuck into the lower realms and violated the balance of the lower realms. She lifted her lower jaw slightly. Her tone was extremely arrogant. The young island master's face sunk. Yiqing Luo, you don't want Yan Xiaoyi's antidote? Yiqing Luo's flamboyant smile froze. After some time, she pursed her pink lips tightly. How can I believe that what you've given is the real antidote? Chapter 2033. Yiqing Luo's face sunk slightly, unable to refute. This is the consequence of valuing relationship. The young island master snorted disdainfully and said disdainfully, It's because you value relationships too much that you have your hands and feet tied and are easily threatened by others. For such feelings, the young island master expressed that he would absolutely not be tainted by such feelings that would prevent him from succeeding. He smiled. If you want to save Yan Xiaoyi, then let the historian release those two people. Qing Luo, don't agree to him. Yan Xiaoyi suppressed her coughing voice. He's not that kind-hearted. The poison in my body is almost gone. As long as I rest for a few days, I will be able to recover. If you hand over those two people from the Earth domain to Godless Island, you will be releasing a tiger back into the mountains. She believed in the ghost doctor's medical skills. If Yan Xiaoyi's poison was nurtured properly, there was at least an 80% chance that it could be completely cleared. But did Yan Xiaoyi really have a chance to recuperate? Many things had happened during the Academy Exchange Conference. Her devil class, the world group, etc. reputation had already spread far and wide in Nirvana realm. After that, he would go to the class of gods for training. Or perhaps countless troubles were lurking in the shadows. These troubles could very possibly worsen Yan Xiaoyi's injuries. Better safe than sorry. Yiqing Luo couldn't risk her own brothers. Gentlemen, we don't have much time left. If we haven't come to a conclusion, we'll take our leave first. The scrivener could feel the turbulence in the air. He decisively decided to flee and avoid the confrontation between the two of them. That was the correct choice. Haven't you decided yet? The young island master curled his lips lightly. This is your only chance. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips. On her beautiful face, there was light flowing in her eyes. Ripples appeared in her eyes, making it hard for others to see through her thoughts. The young island master was not anxious. He knew that for Yan Xiaoyi's sake, Yiqing Luo would definitely agree to his terms. On one side were two insignificant people from the land domain. On the other side was her good sister. Yiqing Luo would definitely choose her good sister. Yiqing Luo hesitated for a moment before she slowly opened her mouth. He had just spat out a word. The expression on the young island master's face was one of pride and confidence. Yiqing Luo was about to spit out the next word. Suddenly, Yiqing Luo felt as though her chest was brushed by something icy cold. Her throat had actually lost its voice in this instant. What was going on? Who was sneaking up on her? Yiqing Luo raised her eyebrows vigilantly as she released her perception and judged the direction of that icy cold feeling. She only had time to see a purple figure flash by. When he looked again, he saw a dense mass of commoners. That purple figure seemed to be just an illusion. But Yiqing Luo was very clear. That was definitely not an illusion. She searched for any memory of this figure in her mind. But after thinking about it for a long time, she couldn't find any memories. The only thing he could be sure of was, based on the figure's petite figure, it was definitely a woman. Women, to be able to seal her voice without her noticing. When did the Western continent have such a character? Furthermore, that woman's motive seemed to be to stop her from speaking. After sealing her voice, that woman hurriedly left. Yi-Ching Luo, what tricks are you trying to play again? The young island master, who hadn't received a reply from Yi-Ching Luo, started to get anxious. Chapter 2034. Yi-Ching Luo regained her senses from her deep thoughts as she raised her eyes to look at young island master. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Her thin eyebrows were tightly knitted together as she mobilized her profound heart jade to break through the power that had sealed her voice. However, he had forcefully used the power of the profound jade heart and activated the power of the divine tool twice. The profound heart jade had already exceeded its limit. She couldn't break through that power at all. Moreover, she could clearly feel that the pendant which Dmo Xian had given her to suppress the profound heart jade was also showing faint signs of cracking. She couldn't be willful anymore. Otherwise, once her profound jade heart loses its restriction, she would be swallowed by the profound jade heart. She steadied her mind and dismissed the idea of breaking through that force. Young island master's expression darkened. I thought you were a person who valued relationships and loyalty. Since you don't want to save Yan Shao Yi, then this young master will tell you the truth. For this kind of poison, if there's no antidote within 5 days, Yan Shao Yi will turn into a puddle of corpse water. Yi-Ching Luo's pupils contracted abruptly. However, the expression on her face remained indifferent. She did not speak. The young island master's mental state exploded. Threats and carrots were all unable to make Yi-Ching Luo relent. If he still couldn't complete this task, his father would definitely give up on him. This was his last chance. No matter what, he had to keep his position as the young island master. Young island master thought that Yi-Ching Luo's silence was because she intentionally put on a high profile, not willing to bother with him. But Yan Shao Yi and the others could tell that something was wrong with Yi-Ching Luo. Yan Shao Yi tugged at Xiao Jin's sleeve. Xiao Jin carried Yan Shao Yi as he walked towards Yi-Ching Luo. Yan Shao Yi said by the side, "You don't need to threaten us. You've spent so much effort to get close to us. Don't you know that Ching Luo's master is the ghost doctor who is known as Ghost Hand Doctor?" The young island lord scoffed. If the ghost doctor could cure the poison in your body, you wouldn't be unable to walk right now. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Jin's hand suddenly froze. He hugged Yan Shao Yi's slender waist tightly. The calm expression on his face no longer existed. Shao Yi, the ghost doctor, he doesn't have the antidote? Xiao Jin lowered his voice. Yan Shao Yi's gaze wavered slightly. Haven't I already gotten much better? Don't you believe in the ghost doctor's medical skills? Shao Yi. Xiao Jin's tone became heavier as he tightened his grip. What he said, is it true? 5 days. Only 5 days? Yan Shao Yi lowered her eyes. Xiao Jin's heart thumped. Yi-Ching Luo's heart thumped hard. Clearly, the young island master's words were all true. Yan Shao Yi herself knew that the remaining poison in her body had not been expelled. The ghost doctor had also clearly told her about the 5-day deadline. The ghost doctor had also promised her that she would try to think of a solution within 5 days. Ching Luo, those two people are unimportant if she Shang. He is willing to use the antidote to exchange, I think. I think it's possible. Xiao Jin immediately looked towards Yi-Ching Luo. From Yan Shao Yi's expression, he could tell. The young island lord's words were all true. Yi-Ching Luo pursed her lips tightly as her charming eyes were suffused with a biting cold glint. When Xiao Jin saw that she did not speak, he became even more anxious in his heart. Just as he was about to open his mouth, Yan Shao Yi grabbed him. Ching Luo seems to have lost her voice. Xiao Jin was stunned. It seemed that indeed, ever since Yi-Ching Luo was about to answer the young island lord, she had not said a single word. Xiao Jin stopped his mouth as his eyes were filled with anxiety and couldn't conceal his worry. Yi-Ching Luo shook her head at him. Young Island Lord, miss ye, we really cannot stay on in Nirvana realm any longer. Librarian saw the current atmosphere and didn't want to get involved in this dispute. Chapter 2035. If they stayed in the lower realm for too long, it would affect the balance of the lower realm. It would also affect the balance of the lower realm. Saying that, the 30 of them had no intention to stay any longer. Historiographer's palm flipped and that hole in the sky suddenly appeared with a golden light. It descended from the sky, projecting a golden long bridge. Historiographer led his men and stepped onto the long bridge. Historiographer. Young Island Master's expression congealed as he called out anxiously, while shooting a glance at the islanders on Godless Island. Immediately, over 100 people stood in front of the court scribes, blocking their path. That golden long bridge's path was blocked. Historiographer's face sunk. What does Young Island Master mean? Historiographer, today I am under my father's orders to bring these 2 people back to Godless Island. If Historiographer is unwilling to give Godless Island this face, then I can only offend you. Young Island Master couldn't care so much anymore. As long as he could complete the task which his father had set, even if he had to use force, he wouldn't hesitate. Young Island Master, you better understand the difference between your Godless Island and the Heavenly Tao realm. If you want to use force, I have the right to detain you and bring you to the Heavenly Tao realm for punishment according to the laws of the Heavenly Tao for disrupting the work of the historian. The historiographer frowned. Young Island Master had no intention to give in. I absolutely have no intention to become enemies with historiographer. If it wasn't for Yi Qing Luo's insistence, I wouldn't treat historiographer in this way. Instead, he pushed his current actions onto Yi Qing Luo. If Yi Qing Luo could speak now, she would definitely ridicule Young Island Master. Damn it, you can't shit but blame the latrine pit? Historiographer wasn't an idiot. Hearing Young Island Master's self-righteous words, his dissatisfaction towards Young Island Master rose by another level. His face sunk as he sneered. Young Island Master, I would like to see how you are going to stop me. Just as he finished his words, a powerful wave of air surged around the historiographer. Profound energy surged and profound chi intertwined. In a split second, the 100 over people who were blocking in front of him were all shaken by this strong energy as they all retreated a few steps. The 100 people stood close together. Once someone lost his footing, he crashed into countless people one after another. On the blood-stained ground, dozens of people collapsed. The Young Island Master's brocade robe fluttered in the strong wind. Looks like the librarian insists on helping Yi Qing Luo. Then don't blame this junior for being impolite. Not to be outdone, he also shot out blazing profound energy that rolled like a tide, contending against the historiographer. When the Young Island Master released his profound energy, he didn't even have the time to collide with the clerk. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew past. He easily cut off the 2 forces that were about to collide. Wherever the hurricane went, whirlpools were set off. Regardless of whether it was the profound chi released by the Young Island Master or the keeper of the temple. Under the hurricane, it dissipated completely in an instant. The hurricane subsided. It was quiet all around. It was as if nothing had happened. The eyes of the custodian and the Young Island Master were filled with shock. He seemed to be unable to understand where exactly did the power that had interrupted their profound energy come from. The 2 of them were in shock. Whereas on the other side, Yi Qing Luo's eyes shone brightly. Her devastatingly beautiful face suddenly became dazzling. Her lips curled upwards as she couldn't stop smiling. Ah Xian! A sweet voice was heard from her mouth. She was stunned as she clutched her throat. She could now make a sound again? Was it because Ah Xian was here? Chapter 2036. When the crowd heard Yi Qing Luo's voice, their hearts trembled. Ah Xian? Who was the person whom Yi Qing Luo was calling for? Whereas Qiao Jin, Yen Xiao Yi and the others, when they heard Yi Qing Luo's voice, they all revealed an overjoyed expression. Yiqing Luo's face was already smiling, like the girl next door, as she sprinted forward. Young Island Master's face instantly turned pale like paper. His body was shaking like a sieve. Others didn't know who Yiqing Luo was calling for. He knew. And he knew it clearer than anyone else. The historian's attention was also attracted by Yiqing Luo's joyful call. The crowd looked towards the direction where Yiqing Luo sprinted towards. They only saw the golden light shining on the horizon, as a tall figure appeared against the light. In the exchange of light and shadow, he looked especially devilishly charming. Like a deity descending to earth, every inch closer he got, the entire public square's atmosphere became more shocked. Slowly, that figure got nearer. A billowing purple robe hung loosely on his body, even his flying black hair was scattered over his shoulders, showing a lazy look. His sleeves were wide, like the rolling clouds, his imposing manner was extremely majestic. Just looking at him like that, the crowd had a feeling of kneeling down in submission, as though he was born to be an almighty deity. The red-robed young lady got closer to him. The young lady's alluring face bloomed into a radiant smile. Her eyes were filled with sweetness and happiness. She threw herself into the man's broad embrace. He lowered his eyes, gazing at the young lady in his arms, as his thin lips twitched slightly, smiling. In a split second, everything on heaven and earth seemed to have lost all its luster. The golden light on the horizon was not as dazzling as this smile of his. His black eyes were gleaming with a devilish and unrestrained aura, his narrow peach blossom eyes rippling with rippling luster. The smile on the corners of his lips softened his cold and stiff aura. A man and a woman hugging each other. It was as beautiful as a beautiful painting. That kind of compatibility made one yearn for it. This dog food was so *king exciting. The Overlord. It's the Overlord. The Overlord is here. The public square instantly went into an uproar. The commoners spontaneously knelt onto the ground. When the various powerhouses people saw Dmo Xian, they uniformly knelt down. They could not hide the fear and excitement in their hearts. Of course, the most terrifying thing was, it was none other than the dark forces and the small forces that had joined the dark forces. Anyone with eyes could see it. What kind of relationship did the Overlord and Yiqing Luo have? However, after the shock and excitement passed, those small forces were still hoping to get lucky. He asked the dark forces what they had said earlier. Isn't there an internal strife in the Imperial Palace? I heard that His Excellency Di Zun has been busy dealing with the changes in the Imperial Palace these past few days. Why would he come to the West Continent? This man is a fake Overlord. How could the real Lord Di Zun appear in the West Continent? That's right. The Imperial Palace was in an uproar. Miss Windchime, the granddaughter of the Imperial Palace's grandmother, took her grandmother and dispersed most of the Imperial Palace's forces. The matter of the Dharch Palace had yet to be resolved. Why would he come here? Those small forces kept denying the authenticity of this man. However, regardless of whether it was the royal army or the commoners, they all had eyes, all right? It wasn't something that those small forces would believe just by casually saying it out. Indeed, it wasn't difficult to disguise as the Overlord and imitate the Overlord's appearance. But